All right, guys. Welcome back to another one. We have a special guest tonight. We have Mr. RC Explain, guys. Let me change the background, of course. You know where you at. You're in the fun zone, and you know who you're rocking with. You're rocking with the best, guys. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Shout out to the 12 people in the chat. And we have the one and only Mr. RC Explain in the house tonight, guys. And we're going to do something a little different, guys. You know, normally we have question and answer on our interview nights, but tonight it's going to be more of a seminar. We're going to just learn something from Mr. RC Explain, guys. All right, let me see. Oh, my goodness. Moving too fast. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me put, if you want to, what are we going to be talking about tonight, Mr. RC Explain? Do you have anything scheduled that you want to talk about tonight?
Yeah, I'm pretty well open for whatever we want to start with. We can get into a number of different things, anything from electrics to airplanes to turbines to wherever we want to go.
All right, let's start with C ratings on batteries.
Oh, this one is a good one.
How do you come up with the C ratings on the batteries?
Okay, let's start with it. So C rating on a battery. This is probably one of the biggest things in the industry that is not quite making sense. We buy battery packs for all different types of radio controlled vehicles, and those battery packs have that C rating that's displayed on the front of the actual label. And you essentially buy batteries based off of what you want in terms of the ones that can deliver the most amount of power if you're trying to go for performance, for example. And this is where the C rating comes into play. And of course, if we go right back down to, you know, the basics of a C rating and what it means, of course, that is your discharge constant. And your discharge constant is going to be the capacity multiplied by that discharge constant. That's your C rating. And that gives you your overall maximum continuous discharge rate for that particular battery pack. And that's where things kind of fall apart in the RC industry from my personal experience. On the channel, if you're familiar with the videos that we do on the RC Explain channel, I do battery tests, which really take battery packs. We load them at a 105 amp load, and we measure the performance that we get out of those batteries. And a few of the points there is we get the voltage that the battery is putting out after 10 seconds. We get the voltage of it essentially through the entire duration of a run. And we're ultimately able to see what kind of performance we get out of that pack overall. And a lot of the packs that we test can't actually meet the 105 amp mark for a continuous run, which I found quite interesting when I first got into it. Another component of what we do to look at the C rating is we take a look at the internal resistance. I think this is a really good thing for a lot of the people in the industry, in the RC hobby. If you have a charger and that charger can measure internal resistance, then it's going to be very easy for you to be able to just keep tabs on that mark and understand the battery performance that you have today versus what it looks like a month from now versus what it looks like from a year from now and maybe a few years down the line. And what we've noticed is that you could take a 100C rated battery pack and it might be doing 20 to 25C in actuality. The best pack that I've tested so far on the channel is looking at around the 35C mark. And then some of the weaker packs are as low as 12. And that one that's as low as 12, if I look at the battery sheet that I have here, yeah, it's coming in at a labeled rating of 100 to 120C. So it just goes to show you, you know, just buying the label that shows us the highest number is not going to get us the best battery pack. And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to understand as we move and continue further with buying more of these battery packs and looking into them and having this kind of knowledge within the hobby world.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot to take in, considering a lot of these battery packs, they claim 120C and things like that. And I think I think I even saw a video where one of the packs even was as low as 9 C rate, a 9 C rating. I was like, that's unbelievable. I mean, considering they're rating 100 and some change, and then when you test them, the resistance on them, they're only a 11 to 9 C. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be quite low. And, you know, if you're trying to put that into a speedrun car, for example, you're going to be challenged with the battery pack being able to dump that kind of power. And if you're pulling several hundred amps in that pull for your top speed run, you're probably looking at a voltage drop down to, on an 8S pack, where they're typically supposed to be around 29 volts or so, you're going to be looking at closer to 20 actual voltage when it's under load at that, let's say 500 amps. That makes a big difference for the guy who wants to hit 150 miles an hour. If you got 20 volts versus you got 24 under load, that's huge. That's a massive amount of power.
So what was the best battery that you tested, and what brand was it?
So the best battery that has been tested was the SRD model from let's see here. SMC. So it's the SRD V3 from SMC. That's been so far the best one that we've tested so far on the channel. And there's a battery pack that performs, that's not too far behind the SMC, and that was the Azure Racing pack. And I still want to get a hold of a couple more packs that have been recommended for the channel to try out and, you know, record some data.
Awesome. I really normally, like, I mean, the way your channel is set up, normally we come up with a lot of questions and things like that. And I didn't write down any questions for you because, I mean, the way your channel is set up, it's more like it's more of you have to explain what's going on rather than actual seeing the vehicle running and things like that. You're basically breaking it down, basically getting a full-on seminar tonight, guys. So definitely enjoy it. We got somebody else joining the stage. Who is that? Louie Fix It. Welcome, Louie Fix It. Watt, Linden, welcome in, guys.
What's up, y'all?
What's good, everybody?
What's going on? What's going on, Ryan? RC Explain.
Hey. Talking about our team tonight.
Luggage.
Good.
What's up, Ryan?
Hey.
Okay. I saw that you had the GT Power 8S battery capacity meter and servo tester. Can you tell us a little bit about that thing?
Yeah, so this is a tool that I think needs to be in everyone's toolbox, toolkit in the RC hobby, whether you're flying planes or running cars. It's a really good thing to just be able to check the battery before you make a run, especially a plane. You don't want to go and throw a dead battery pack in a plane. I've seen it done at the flying field where guys have thrown in their jet battery pack. They go up, they do barely half a circuit, they hit low voltage cutoff, and the plane comes, you know, falling out of the sky because there's a dead battery being placed into the airplane. My recommendation is to take a tool such as one of these and measure the voltage before you actually get the plane on the runway. Know that you have something that says you got over 95% capacity, and then you're good to go as far as battery performance. And that tool tester kit, that thing, that comes in handy for being able to do exactly just that. It's got a couple other features that you can use, but ultimately it's going to allow you to look at the cell voltage there of each one of them within a particular battery pack. And it does up to 8S, that particular model. Really good unit.
How does that unit compare to what is it? What's the name of that one you have, Linden?
Hey, what?
Which
one we talking about? Plane?
The program card. How does that compare to the Hobby Wing? Which version is that, Linden? The program card that you have?
Hobby Wing. The one I got is the Bluetooth one.
No, not that one. White. The one with the wheel on it. The newer one that Linden picked up. I'm not sure the model number of it.
Yeah. Man. It's over here buried somewhere.
We know you got 1,000 ESCs and motor combos over there. It's okay, Linden. We understand.
I'll get it right quick. I'm gonna get it right quick.
We got somebody said in the chat, can you get those on Amazon, the SMCs?
SMCs, no. So I'm in Canada, and Canadians cannot buy an SMC. I went directly to the website, and I had to figure out a way to ship it somewhere in the US and get somebody in the US to bring it over into Canada. That's how I actually got it into Canada. I don't think they can be purchased through Amazon, at least not last time I checked.
Yeah, they got their own website.
Oh, okay.
But
All right.
figure out how to get them, and if you're looking for performance, I can't say enough. I mean, the data speaks for itself. You know, it's not just my opinion. We're talking numbers, and the numbers show. They show good numbers.
This the one you're talking about?
Yes. And that one has servo adjustment capabilities on it as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so it
I
looks like that plugs into your electronic speed control, and then you can program and do things like that.
Yep. And it's Bluetooth capability. So with the newer hobby wing motors and ESCs, you can just straight connect from Bluetooth from your phone.
Right, that makes it really convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the unit that I was talking about, a little bit different in the sense of it measures the battery voltage. It really doesn't connect with the ESC, but what it does have is it has the capability of testing out servos. So you can actually run a servo on it and just make sure you got your servo if you're hooking up a radio controlled car, making sure that the steering is centered and goes from full lock left to all the way right, and get that dialed in mechanically using that unit rather than, connecting your radio up, running the transmitter and going through it that way.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Spectrum has that too on one of their LCD program cards.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, of course I have one of those in my eBay cart, ready for purchase. I'm gonna definitely pick one of those up.
Excellent.
And as far as battery chargers, what battery chargers do you recommend?
It's a great question. I mean, there's so many battery chargers out there, and it really depends on what you're looking for. I've gone through a bunch of reviews very recently with GT Power. I got one coming up that's from GNCRC. Spoiler alert, that's not announced anywhere else other than this channel. And the one that I have used for many years is a Gröppner Polaron. It's a 1400 watt unit, dual channel. For the guy that's running like speedrun vehicles or any type of high powered car, I highly recommend a dual channel. And if you think you're going to be in the hobby for a long time, you may as well spend the $1 and get one that can, pump up your battery packs within half an hour or so. I generally don't charge beyond the 2C rate. It's very, very rare I go beyond 2C in my charging. Typically half an hour is more than enough time or quick enough for me to be able to use the RC. So Gröppner, I've had a lot of, good experience with that unit. The GT Powers that I more recently have tested, they have been really good, especially the newest one that I ended up just running there. I have a lot of expectations for the GNCRC. So I'm throwing out a bunch of different brands. I think if you're really looking for something that is optimized around budget but has good performance, GT Power right now looks pretty good. Yeah. What do you guys use right now?
Battery wise?
Charger wise, what charger are you using to get those batteries topped off?
Well, I was just using this right here today. Spectrum.
Okay, yes. Yep, nice.
Yeah, I'm using the ISDT QMax, the QMax 8 Max.
Okay, yep. And then I see an IMARS.
Yeah, I'm running the IMARS. I just picked this up recently. I like the way it charges my battery packs.
Right on. I think I'm testing, it could be even that exact model that I'll be reviewing very shortly. And then I see Easy Peak Plus from Traxxas. Okay. Yep.
That thing right there is good.
Yeah.
Since
So
I
you can
got
see,
this the one I've been using since I got it. The charge is good with this one.
Excellent. Yeah. And the big thing here is like, if I were to ask how reliable are all those units, you probably haven't had any issues with all the ones that we just showed, right?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
never had no issues.
And I've had the same thing with all the chargers that I've owned so far. And I've owned a ton of chargers. I got a few sitting here and they all work. They all perform. It really comes down to what type of performance you're looking for. And that's where you'll spend the money. And then if you don't need that type of performance and you can wait and you don't need kind of high current ratings there, then you can kind of get that budget unit. I actually tested one not too long ago. I bought it for myself. It's an ISDT and it's one of those ones you can actually plug into a USB 3.0. And I have another one of those packs that have like 100-watt capability for the USB-C output. I popped that into the ISDT charger and it gives me some pretty good current. I think it was up to over 10 amps or somewhere around 10 amps potential, up to 6S. And I think I paid $30 Canadian. So what is that? Like $1 American?
That's
Something like that.
Hey, that's an excellent deal.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I use IDST too. I got 2 of those chargers.
You got ISDT? Yeah.
Yes, I got. Yes, they're good too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the little one I got.
Yeah, I like that one right there. Ty got it.
Okay. I got the 608 PD. So it's very similar in size to that. Just performance really good. And of course, I haven't had it for very long, so I don't know, about reliability. But again, with these units, I don't really foresee any real critical issues. I've never had a charger actually break on me. I've been charging batteries since probably around 2002, 3. And I actually just gave away my charger that I bought in 2005 to somebody.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that still works totally fine, and it's charged so many different batteries. It had a max of 7 amps. It was single channel, but I literally haven't used it for the last like 8-10 years maybe.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Okay.
What transmitter do you recommend? Because a lot of the guys that hang around out here in the chat are pretty much new to the RC hobby, and they may be looking to upgrade transmitters. What transmitter do you recommend someone upgrade to if they want to swap out a stock transmitter?
Okay, and what kind of radio control vehicle may they be running? Something very general?
I guess we talk about a car, an on-road or off-road vehicle, some type of car.
Okay, I would say that the right now I have been using Spectrum for a very long time. I started with Spectrum maybe 2006, and I've been using them all up to the year of 2024 or 2023. And right now I've actually made a transition to Radio Link. I made this transition to Radio Link primarily for one feature, and that was range. I found issues with range on the cars. I've never had an issue with range on an airplane ever before. I've never lost a plane because of range or had any crash because of a range or a radio on an airplane. But for the radio control car, I ran into multiple different issues because of that. When I switched over to a Radio Link model, that's when things changed for me. Now I don't run into those types of range issues. I like the cost of them. They're very cost effective. If you want to go with something that's, got all the I don't know, the bells and whistles, for lack of a better term, you can get something that is around maybe $300-400 and it's got all that, or you can go with a Radio Link model like that one. Exactly. Yeah. And what are they? Is that the 6? Or that's
this
the 4?
Is the 4 channel. Yeah. I think it was only like $60 and it comes with the receiver.
You said 60?
Yeah.
Yeah. So something like that is going to do it. And if you want the 6-channel version of it, it's very similar. I don't think, if we're talking in USD, in US dollars, maybe 80, 90.
Yep.
For that other unit. I know most of my pricing is in Canadian, so I'm going to try my best to kind of,
no worries. No
that
worries.
was spot on, bro.
Nah,
Louie, I know you got one too, don't you, Louie?
Yeah, he got the 6 channel.
Right.
Nah, that's my 7 channel.
Oh.
There's a reason why we're showing this brand.
But this one is, I think I spent like $70-something for this one.
Exactly. Yep. Solid model. I have one of those too.
I think Yeah, the best thing about them is the receivers are only like $20, and you can get them with gyros, and they're usually like 6 or 7 channels receivers.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. Yep, that's
Awesome.
definitely a good brand.
Okay, so myself and Linden, we're dibbling and dabbling
Okay.
and trying to enter into the pilot world and try to become pilots. What plane do you recommend as a beginner plane that could be easy, that would be easier to learn how to fly?
What pilot? Okay, so you're new to flying and you're
Yes.
looking for that beginner plane.
Yes.
I would have to say like the Aero Scout, I believe is the name. And that model, it's inexpensive. It's got a lot of the features that you'd expect an entry-level model. It's not too small. I always would recommend something larger for a new pilot, and it might kind of be like counterintuitive, but a bigger plane performs better than a smaller plane. Smaller planes tend to be very twitchy in the air. You make a small little movement on the ailerons and the wings, drop very violently. But something like the Aero Scout, it's a decent enough balance where the plane, I think it's somewhere around 41 inches wingspan. So I wouldn't call it big by any stretch of the imagination, but that size is going to be very good for a lot of different fields that you might be flying in. The speed of it slows right down to nothing. This is going to be a plane that you're going to see lots of people recommend, I'm certain.
Absolutely. Everybody that we ask, they give us the same answer. Linden has both versions. Linden has the small one and the big one over there.
Okay, what's the big one is probably the one I'm referring to. That's like 40 something inches, 41, 42 wingspan.
Yeah, the Aero Scout, I have that one.
Okay. Yeah, and what's the smaller one for a wingspan? Is that like a micro size or
the mini one?
I'm not sure about the smaller one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything in mind for the smaller one, but the one that I was thinking about was that 41, 42 inch or so. Yeah, it runs on a 3S. I think it's anywhere from like 1,300 to 2,200 milliamp hour battery pack, and that's like the most popular, battery to run. So those are definitely a good price to pay for battery packs to get into the hobby. Use those. You can get like that ISDT that I bought for $30. That charger will do. You also got radios that you can get for that type of model if you don't get the one that includes it. I think you can actually buy a complete package with that one as well. Comes with everything.
Awesome.
Yeah, do you enjoy it? That
I haven't flown it yet.
Oh, you haven't flown it yet. Okay, so what's it doing? Is it still in the box?
Still in the box.
No.
Okay. So I got a question.
Yeah.
The Speedrun calculator. How do you calculate the Speedrun? How do you come up with these numbers for your Speedrun calculator?
Speedrun calculator. Is this on the website?
I think you had a video. It says Speedrun calculator update. Yep. Gearing now auto populates.
Okay, yeah. So there's a couple things here, and what you see is more than likely the spreadsheet that I have for anyone who's a Patreon member of the RC Explained community there. I also have on the radiocontrolinfo.com website. That's a website that I manage. I have also calculators there, and they both work very similarly. You're going to get a lot more bells and whistles on the Patreon version. I've kind of made that so things auto-populate and items come in when you select, for example, the vehicle. I have a limitless behind me. You select the limitless V1 or V2, all the gears populate because there are differences in gearing on those two units, on those two vehicles. And really what it comes down to when you're selecting a power system and you throw a power system together, and I get this question probably the most frequently, at least once a month, someone's going to be asking me, hey, I burned up my motor. How come? And they tell me that they got like 3 billion kV and they're running 3 billion volts to it. And they're trying to achieve 3 billion RPM, which is going to take them to 3 billion miles an hour. And it doesn't work, right? Because the motor is just too loaded. It's pulling all the power in the world. And then you end up with things that start to break. And you're going to end up with things that break based off of your weakest link. If the battery's the weakest link, you got a problem because they'll start fires very quickly, and they're very explosive. There's a lot of energy being packed in there. It could also be the ESC. Those also start fires, and it could be the motor. Those also burn out. I've seen all three of them burn out in time. So the calculator itself just takes your KV values, it takes your gearing, it takes all of these items, all these different parameters, and it allows you to calculate a top speed. And then it's up to that user that ends up making that calculation to determine if that is a realistic number. If you're taking in a limitless, for example, and you're trying to make top speed runs, and you end up with a speed for your very first limitless build and it says 250 miles per hour, probably not recommended. You probably have some setup that you're going to have to tone back by quite a bit, probably by half of that. You know, reach a speed that's more moderate for your first build at 100 miles per hour, and then you enter in the data based on that. KV values, if you already bought a motor, then you'd have to enter that one, and then you have to play with gearing there from there. And that's really ultimately what the calculator does, and it's saved a lot of people from buying the wrong setups. You know, you get to predict what kind of speed you're going to get, and it tends to be fairly accurate when you have all the values in there.
And this is on your website, right?
There, yeah. So it's on the website. You do have the calculator that's available there, radiocontrolinfo.com. And then if you're a subscriber to the RC Explained Patreon page, then there's a calculator that's downloadable there, a whole entire spreadsheet. It's got all the formulas and everything exposed on that sheet, so you can see how it all works and all.
I know I've used it a couple
radiocontrolinfo.com.
Yeah, that's the website there.
All right, I'm gonna drop it in the chat so the guys can check it out.
Right on. Yeah, do you guys use calculators to see exactly what's going on with the setup?
Absolutely not. Throw the system in there, and let's see how fast it can go.
You know, that's cool. You know, we've all been there. I've done it too. Yeah.
I mean, I use telemetry.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you like on the telemetry?
I like to see my RPMs, the voltage, how much voltage I'm using, how many milliamps I used up, the speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like simple stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's what it's all about, right? So very similarly, I have telemetry on my airplane. I have not had telemetry on a radio control car or a radio control boat. But the telemetry on the airplane, I'm most interested in speed. I want to know, okay, how fast was that pass? Okay, how fast was that pass? Can I beat it? How fast was that one? That's what I'm doing mostly. Yeah, I don't really even track voltage or current on my telemetry. It's primarily only speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you was talking about it earlier about the batteries and the C ratings. Because I use different sometimes when I'm doing speed runs, I use different batteries and different C ratings and see like how much is at the output is putting out, how much like the milliamps are using, and the voltage, like how much voltage is being put out in different batteries.
Okay, yes. Yeah, it's good to know that kind of information. What I also like doing too is I take a lot of data logs. I use Castle Creations ESCs, and they data log all the information for me. I take one of those, I look at the entire run, so you get everything in detail, right? And from there, you can see exactly what kind of performance you're getting out of a vehicle. I can see when I make a battery change, probably very similar to yourself, where I make a battery change and I get totally different numbers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've definitely seen that before. Change batteries and get a completely different speed.
Yes.
Faster or slower, depending on the battery.
Yes. Yep. Definitely a thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, the C ratings that are on battery packs, they are not true.
They're not true? Not at all?
Not true. Yeah.
So if I buy 100 and like this battery, like, all right.
Yeah.
So I got a whole bunch of batteries up here. So I have this Spectrum Pro Basher battery, 6,800 milliamp, 100 C rating. That C rating is not true.
That 120, it says 120 in the top right there, right? From what I see.
Yes.
Yeah, 120 C. I have not come across a battery that can perform greater than that 35 or so mark. So 120.
Wow.
You know, if we actually do the math on that, what is that? That's a 6.8 amp hour battery, 6,800 milliamp hour, right? And
Yes.
if I multiply that by 120C, I'm going to get 816 amps. 816 amps that I could pull from that battery pack for the entire duration of power that thing can supply. That's going to be a bomb. It's going to be red hot and it will not last. Yeah, so the ideal thing here when it comes to C rating that we didn't talk about earlier that I can mention now is that the way I measure what a realistic C rating is when we're actually doing a load test is based off of a thermal threshold. So really what that boils down to is hitting a certain temperature. If you hit that temperature and you exceed it, that battery cannot perform under that particular load because it's too hot, which becomes too unsafe. And battery manufacturers generally place this at 140 Fahrenheit. I always want to talk in Canadian terms here. So the Fahrenheit, 140 Fahrenheit is 60 degrees Celsius. And that there is going to be what everyone should consider the maximum they should see on a battery. As soon as you get beyond that, it's unsafe. And at that type of load, you are definitely going to be seeing temperatures that exceed it, 800 and something amps. I've never even pulled that kind of power before. That's a lot. Wow. Yeah, and we're saying we're doing it continuous. My limitless hits 500 amps, but that's for a very, very split second.
So what's the top speed you've achieved with your your limitless?
The limitless, I think I threw up a video not too long ago. That one is my PB. And I don't know if people would actually consider that as a PB because at the very end of the run, I tried to let her go, as far as you can get her out there. And then when I hit the brakes, it kind of went sideways and I lost it over on the one side. It was 216 kilometers an hour. So here we go. Got to do some math here to change this over. And that works out to 134, 135 miles an hour, somewhere around there.
Wow, that's nice. That's a nice speed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good speed for sure.
That's a good speed.
Yeah, mostly for speed for myself. I'm playing around with airplanes. I feel like airplanes, it's just easier to get a higher top speed, and you can do that high top speed back to back to back to back to back. I don't need to sit there and wait for it to
cool down.
Exactly. I made 216 kilometer an hour pass, 135 miles an hour, and I'm now waiting after I make that pass. I might do 2 of them, and then I'll be at my maximum threshold for motor temperature and speed control temperature.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as airplane transmitters, budget option as well as the top of the line option. So if somebody was trying to, get a budget transmitter that they could bind to all their planes, what would you recommend as far as a budget option as well as a more expensive option?
Okay, so this is a tough one for me. Probably because I use Spectrum for my airplane. For everything that I own in terms of if it flies in the air, I use Spectrum. And one of the reasons why I would suggest, and then someone have to make up their mind and see if this fits what they want to do. I use Spectrum because you can bind and fly with a lot of different models out there that's sold in North America. And I think that's just makes it really simple where you can take one transmitter and you can run that for multiple different airplanes that you purchase. You don't need to worry about the receiver and dropping that in. All right, so that's one thing I would recommend. And if you're looking for a specific one from these guys and it's entry-level base, you probably want to look at their 6-channel. They called it at one point the DX6i, and they probably have changed this name. I don't know what the new DX6i would look like, but it's going to be your 6-channel entry-level Spectrum radio. That would probably be on the budget end of things. And there's also another brand that I can't remember off the top of my head that's used. It's FR Sky. Does that ring a bell?
FR Sky, yeah, I heard of that transmitter.
Yeah, okay. So this one, I know many that use it flying in the field, at the flying field. I personally have not used one of these, but again, it's another budget unit, and you probably can get more goodies on it, more bells and whistles for the same price, or maybe even less, I don't know. But those tend to be really good as well. And a lot of people have good luck in terms of all the functionality. And again, with these radios, I've not personally witnessed anyone who's had a radio issue. And I myself have never had a radio issue with airplanes. So both of these.
You don't mean this right here, do you?
FlySky might be a different one.
I know this one is more for drones, but I don't know if you can fly planes with it or not, but I think you can.
Yeah, so the one I'm thinking of, I just looked it up here, FR Sky, Free Sky, maybe people are saying. That's how they call it. Yeah, that would be the other one that I would recommend. Looking at a model that fits your budget on there. They're all going to be priced very competitively for what you get. And then if we kind of go now flipping over to maybe the mid-range, I'll throw in a mid-range in there too. One I use, my main radio right now from Spectrum is the IX14. This does everything. It handles the turbine jet. It handles the electric ducted fan jets. It'll handle any type of trainer style airplane. This is one that I use for float flying. It's hard to put floats on a jet and fly there. Otherwise I would, but that would be the model I'd be using for that particular application. And then, if money is not an object and you want to throw all kinds of money at it, there's a couple that the guys who are hardcore into jets are using. And one of those brands is Jetty. If you've heard of the Jetty radio, very good brand of radio. And there's another one.
I've never heard of that.
Sorry. Yeah, me neither. Never heard of that. I'm still a beginner, so.
Yep. So
I'm still doing a lot of research.
Yep, that one. It's a Czech-based company out there in Europe. And there's another one that slips my mind right now that is also up there. Powerbox. I think Powerbox, something like that, is the other radio that comes to mind when it comes to the high end. So it is Powerbox Radio Systems. One of their models is the Core. That's what they call it. And that's being used by a number of pilots who are flying turbine jets as well. So Jetty and Powerbox, those are going to be up at the top. And then you got many in the mid and many also on the entry level. So that's what makes it difficult in RC, right? We got so many options. Where do you start?
Right.
Hopefully that kind of gives some sense of where to start.
Absolutely. Let me see. Okay, hold on, did we talk about KV rating? No, we didn't talk about KV rating on motors.
Yeah, we ain't talking about motors yet. Can we talk about motors?
Sure.
And the KV?
Yeah, where do you want to start? There's a lot to talk about when it comes to motors.
Yeah,
we need it all, bro.
Okay, where to start? Okay, since we do a lot of trash talking over here in the fun zone, and it has spawned several speed challenges. So, what would we need to do to kick the other person's butt?
Okay, so you want to go fast, and that's the goal?
Yes.
Okay, so really what it comes down to, when you want to go fast, you want motors that can deliver the horsepower, the raw power. Horsepower is, I know there's a saying out there, what is it, like horsepower wins races, or torque wins races and horsepower does something else, but at the end of the day, horsepower is what actually does all of the work. You can have, if you say that a motor has lots of torque, what you're actually saying is that it has a lot of horsepower at low RPMs. And that's what's able to drive it, because horsepower already includes that torque element within the equation. So that is actually going to capture all the bits of information. So you translate this now over to an electric motor, and now we know if we want something that can produce a lot of power, what's going to produce a lot of power is a large motor. So when I'm sourcing a motor for my particular models here, what I'm looking for is the biggest motor that I can physically fit into my radio controlled vehicle. And if I look at that, that's a good place to start. Now you got to kind of sort through, what does that mean in terms of brand, in terms of KV, in terms of all the other specifications, right? So once we have our big size motor, then we need to actually look at the kV. And the way that I pick power systems, and I recommend that everyone picks power systems, is you start off by knowing what voltage you want to run with a particular model. Once you have that voltage that you want to run, maybe it's based off of what you know, like 1/8 scale vehicles typically run like a 6S pack, maybe the 1/7 like a Limitless, you get up into the 8S pack. So you know already the voltage you want to run. Now you work backwards and you use these calculators that I have on the Patreon site and the radiocontrolinfo.com website to figure out gearing as well as the kV. The reason why I say gearing and I throw that in there is because with our radio control vehicles, as you can imagine, our transmissions inside there have limitations. We can't just put an infinite range of gears inside of these vehicles. So what we do is we know the range of gears that we can use. We throw that in the calculator and we see what it comes out to for a kV option. The reason why motor manufacturers give us all these kV options, especially if you look at a brand of motor that is more general, like Leopard Motors is one. I don't know if you've heard of Leopard Motors. They have a list. How about New Motors or Lenner Motors? I mean, we can talk about all these different brands. You're going to hear.
No, hey, I haven't heard of any of them. Please enlighten me.
I think I've heard of
Leopard Motor. Yeah, they make a nice like 800 kV or like 780 kV something.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, if you go on their website and you look at the motors, if it's New Motors, Leopard Motors, any of these brands, and it's the ones that produce lots of motors, it's not like your Castle Creations, right? Then you're going to see a list of motors. And within that list, you're going to see all the way up from a very high kV and a very low kV. And it's all for the same size of brushless motor. So that's the really cool thing about it. You're looking at the same motor size that you can physically fit in, because that's what you looked at as the biggest, baddest motor you can get into the vehicle. Then you can take a kV that's going to work with your 6S battery, or it's going to work with your 8S battery. And, in addition, because everything's kind of connected as a system, it's also going to work with the gearing that you're limited to in your particular vehicle. So that's how you figure out the kV that would actually go into your particular system. Now, here's what happens actually in the industry, right? We go to the store. What we do, we buy the motor that comes from Castle Creations, and we just drop that in because it's already figured out to a certain degree of what can work, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at Castle Creations, they have their 1515 1Y. I think that's probably the middle ground, the most generic motor they have for your, let's say, 1/8 scale vehicle, and that comes in a kV of around 2200. And 2200 kV is going to work with your 4S system, or it's also going to work with your 6S system. You'll be able to produce power from it, but there are going to be certain limitations with that if you decide to run that particular motor with a 4S battery. You are giving up a lot of potential for performance because you're not running it at the highest amount of voltage that it's actually capable of doing. Another thing to throw in there that's really cool, and I like to talk about it, is that motors are not limited and they don't burn up because of voltage. Voltage essentially does not kill a brushless motor. What kills a brushless motor is heat. And where do we build heat? We build heat through current, right? So now, absolutely, the part that kind of comes in, if you go and take a motor and you run an infinite voltage to it, you're not going to end up with a motor that lives. No. At some point, that thing's going to grenade itself. And the reason why is because motors are limited to a maximum RPM. There's a certain amount of speed where you'll actually throw that rotor apart physically. It's going to come apart because it can't handle the internal stresses and the forces that are built within that motor in that rotating assembly. And when that throws itself apart, then it's mechanically damaged. But it's not actually the voltage that is destroying it. The voltage contributes to a high amount of RPM you get out of it. So that's one thing that kind of is I don't know if it's a misnomer in the industry or if it's a myth that voltage kills motors, but it doesn't. So what this allows us to do is if we understand this rule, all we need to know is the maximum RPM that we can take that particular motor up to, and then we can also build systems based off of that. right? So now we switch over to the more general marketed motors that are offered to us. And that's like the Castle Creations 2200 that I've already suggested. Castle's done their homework. They know that if they recommend a 6S battery or a 4S battery pack to us, that it's going to be fine. It's not going to go over that maximum RPM. But if we actually ran the numbers, 6S may not actually be the limit of that particular motor. I did a video a while ago, and it was of a Castle Creations motor that was recommended a maximum of 4S. And I think in that particular video, what I did is answer the question of, well, what happens if we run it on 6S? Will it blow up? And the answer was no, it doesn't blow up. So then the question is why does Castle Creations limit that particular motor to only 4S? And the answer to that question is if you drop that particular motor into many generic radio controlled cars, you're probably going to burn something out because it's not made for that much RPM. The transmission is made to operate with a motor that can deliver, let's say, 40,000 RPM. But when you jump that RPM up to 60,000 RPM and you don't change your gearing, that system is now going to have to handle a much greater load because it takes more power to go faster. And more power to go faster means you're going to have more heat. And more heat means there's potential for dead components. So what the hobbyist would have to do if you want to actually do this successfully is change your gearing. You got to alter your gearing so that you can do that more safely. Drop it down to the same speed that you were going at and maybe bump it up by a smaller percentage so you can go faster, but you're still within a realistic number. So I hope everything's kind of making sense in what we're covering.
Definitely. Oh, don't worry. Yeah. I'm definitely going to be using that calculator because, I gotta go fast. I gotta go fast. Like Ricky Bobby, I want to go fast.
We all do that. Yeah, I live to go fast to some degree.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So when you're like picking a motor, would you say like the diameter is more important or the length of the can?
Interesting question. So this does come up from time to time. And I've looked at this. Ultimately, what it comes down to is the physical size of the motor. So the way I would answer that is it's the volume. How are you getting that volume? And if you're doing it through diameter, fine. If you're doing it through the length of the can, it's pretty well the same. So if you look at a motor, you know that the bigger the diameter of that motor is, your KV is probably dropping. Right. It's probably lower, right? But if you also take a motor and you lengthen it, I like to always think in terms of exaggerating it. If you take a motor and it's an inch long, you're going to understand the KV of it when you read it. And then if you take a motor and it's 10 inches long, that KV is probably going to be a lot smaller, right? You're actually doing the same thing, whether you increase in diameter or you increase in length. You're dropping that KV and you're allowing also, because the motor's getting bigger, it can handle a lot more heat, a lot more waste heat. So it's going to be able to run a lot more power. So the answer is here, if you have an application and you're better off with a smaller in length motor because you can get a bigger diameter, go with that. Go with that option. Get the biggest motor you can to fit that space. If diameter is it, do it. And if you have the opposite of that and it's a long space that you have available, but a very small diameter, then go with that longer motor. At the end of the day, bigger, better.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as motors, I've seen you've been testing out Castle systems. Look like you tested out some Hobby Wing systems and other systems like that, as well as some TP motors.
Yep.
Which motor would you recommend, like we said, to go fast? Which one and which system and why?
Okay, it's a tough one when I have to actually break it down to a specific brand, and it really comes down to probably more bias for me. But what I would be looking at is what fits my application. And you're going to see differences from all the different motor brands out there, and some have advantages in certain areas, right? You can get a TP motor that is, most of them, the ones that I use, are not censored. And that's another aspect too that we can touch on. But you can get a TP motor that is very long and doesn't really have a large diameter for its length, and that might be beneficial for you to be able to use that particular motor. Another thing is you have lots of options under the TP brand to get a high RPM brushless motor. I think they use the term or acronym or whatever on the end of their part number, CM. If you've seen like a TP motor with a CM on there, I think it represents a higher RPM brand. And then if they have another combination of letters, I think you get into another level of RPM potential where it goes upwards of, I don't know, 80, 90, 100,000 RPM possibility. And that's going to be an advantage for you. So if you're looking for a motor with a lot of different options in KV, but you also want it to be high RPM based, I would side with the TP solution. I would get that TP solution. If you want to try tested and proven motor that's easy to dump into your typical like limitless or top speed run of anything, I would go with that Castle Creations. They got two of their high performance, high RPM output. One of them is the 1521. That's actually the green can that we see somewhere right here. That's what's in this vehicle. That has upwards of 90,000 RPM potential. On 8S, you might see 60,000 RPM. They actually rate it at 6S, but there's guys who have run it on higher voltages there in order to hit that higher potential RPM, and they do see benefits. But this is your generic. So it's kind of like a two-part answer. There's so many motor brands I can talk about too, like New NEU. That's been a big brand in terms of radio controlled airplanes. And then more recently, guys have started using them in radio controlled cars. And I say recently, it's probably been like 10 years or so now that they've been doing that. And they also push those types of motors you can get. Another really good brand for high quality if you're looking at it. And then you got more of like a European brand, Lenner. That's going to be very high, high end in terms of very comparable to that new brushless motor. And then if we flip things on the low end, I am, again, biased here. Leopard motors, we talked about it earlier. That's one that I use in a lot of radio-controlled vehicles as well, mostly radio-controlled boats. I'm using Leopard motors, and I feel like you get really good bang for your buck. The dollar versus quality versus performance versus options in terms of motor size versus options in KV size, you're going to have all of that right there. And they actually sell geared towards radio controlled cars or boats or airplanes. And they sell specific motors specific for those applications. Not that the car knows what kind of motor is in it or the motor knows what kind of vehicle it's driving, but there is certain things that you can do with a radio controlled car, like adding fins. Where on a boat, you don't want air-cooled fins because you have the water available right underneath the boat. You can use water with a water jacket. So you want a smooth can, right? So there's these types of differences as well. But I would say Leopard for your more budget-friendly option.
All right. Great answer. Don't worry. I will be watching this playback so I can spank y'all. You know what time it is. I'm giving up all the smoke this summer, guys. Giving up all the smoke.
You're talking about the magic smoke, that we try to keep inside?
No, it's just a joke. Well, everybody around here, a lot of the guys have vendettas, right? And we say nobody wants the vendetta smoke. Well, meaning nobody wants to race us. That's what we be saying. But we don't have any fast cars really. So it's just a term we use around here. So anybody watching, don't think we have fast vendettas. We're just talking.
It's fast mean though, right? Like, fast to me when I got into the hobby was something that does 50 kilometers an hour, which is 30 miles an hour or so.
We got some pretty fast ones. Everybody put up some numbers before. My most recent run with my Vendetta, I only hit 70, but I was running on the stock motor, so.
Yeah, only 70. Yeah, so see, when I got into the hobby, like 70 was more than double of my potential, and I started with a lot of Nitro vehicles, so that's another thing we can get into. But I think Nitro it's hard to get the speed. Electric is so easy in comparison, but 70 miles an hour, you could do a lot of damage at 70 miles an hour.
Oh, right? Yeah, definitely.
I think people's sense of speed is like warped nowadays too, because most of these trucks coming out, they do 50 plus out of the box. I mean, even the little Armagrams, they're doing like 50 out the box. It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's one, I agree with you. Absolutely. There's a lot of these vehicles now that are coming in, and the amount of speed you can get out of them is incredible. But it takes the correct amount of driving to be able to do it without damaging it. And that takes experience. You can't, for the first time in your life, pick one of these up and attempt that. It's going to be quite the challenge. And I'm sure there's someone out there that can do it. But for the most part, probably not going to happen. It's the same thing with like an airplane. You can't grab an airplane and throw it in the air and hope to do 250 kilometers an hour with it. But yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely. Okay. Since we've been talking about speed runs and motors, KVs, let's talk RC tires. What performance characteristics do we need to be looking for the best tires to keep these cars on the road?
Okay, so if you're looking at, you know, high speeds, guys are running anything from your typical belted rubber tires. There's a certain speed there where you start to transition and consider foam tires and things that are a little bit more different than the typical tire. A lot of the stuff that I run, because the speeds I'm hitting is under 150 miles an hour. My goal, I don't need to go super fast. In fact, it's hard to, you know, find an area where I can do it. So I'm going with just your typical rubber belted tire. As long as it stays together, it's good for me. Then we have options from there, you know, so it's not just all about a rubber tire. It's how soft do you want that rubber tire to be? Because if you go with something that is softer, it's going to be a little stickier. It's going to help in traction. And one of the hardest things to do, especially if you on your transmitter, you don't have something that helps limit your acceleration rate, which is kind of like a delay on the throttle. I don't know if you guys use delays on the throttle. I use a delay now because my radio link has it, and it's a great feature to have, but I've been driving without a delay for years. And if you don't have that delay and you pull the trigger too hard, you might be sideways and off the road very quickly. So getting, you know, a softer rubber for you, if you really want to hook up and accelerate very aggressively, that's a good way to do it. For me, there's a catch to that. If you have softer rubber on the tire, you're going to run into longevity problems where it doesn't last as long. You're going to go through tires a lot more, just because the wear of them is going to be a lot higher. In that case, if you're looking for lifespan of the tire, you're probably going to side more to that harder, you know, rubber compound, and that's going to get you that, but sacrificing the grip that you might have. If you're doing lots of road courses and that type of thing, you got choices. Do you want to have that tire on there for a long time? Go with something harder. And if you want the grip because you want fast laps, you're going to want to go on the soft side of things.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Let me see. Okay. Since you said something about nitros, if somebody was like myself, interested in dibbling and dabbling in nitro, I'm more of an electric guy. What nitro would you recommend for someone's first nitro, and how hard is it, the learning curve as far as the tuning?
Yeah, that's the really big thing when it comes down to nitro vehicles. It's really about that tuning aspect. And you might think, you know, once you got it tuned up, you're good, but it's not the case. A nitro vehicle, you'll be looking at tuning that thing almost every single run. And even from day to day, it might seem like you don't need to, but more than likely, if you got different humidity, different barometric pressure, different temperature, that nitro tune is going to be different. It doesn't work the same way as a gas vehicle. So there is definitely a learning curve that takes some time, and you're going to have to be very paying attention to the things, the kind of the alarm bells that go off on the vehicle. And a good thing to look at is the sound of the engine as it accelerates, especially when you accelerate at low RPM. Then you're listening also to the sound it makes at high RPM. And then another characteristic that some people like to look at is the amount of smoke that comes out. And so the smoke should kind of play along nicely with the sound that you're hearing. They should kind of go and be very comparable. So if you see lots of smoke, you should be able to trace that with sound. I would always highly recommend that if you have a good ear and you can hear what the engine's doing and understand what that engine's doing, you're probably going to learn that quite quickly on what to do. Then you're just fooling around with, most engines have a low speed needle and a high speed needle. There are some engines that also have a mid speed needle in terms of your mixtures. But once you learn how to adjust those, you typically run the high speed needle first, you make the adjustments there, and then you come back to that low speed needle and adjust it for your low acceleration RPM. And once you have that figured out, then you're well on your way. In terms of the actual brands that are available, I know that Traxxas was around. They had the Rustler that was Nitro. I don't know if they still have that. They also had the Traxxas Jado that sold forever. I don't know if they still have that, but those two models were ones that I used. There were some finicky things about the engines on them. I have a Jado even still that I run. It's appeared on the channel. I bought it used actually, and I think I paid something ridiculous for it. Maybe not. Maybe it was like $80 or something, but it was actually just destroyed. Like, it was the worst used purchase I've ever made in my entire life for a radio controlled vehicle. I needed to replace almost every single part in it, you know.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was just looking on eBay at one for $75. I was just looking at one.
Okay.
Nitro. And I was like, I'm glad you said that, because guess what? That right there just scared me off and let me know, don't make that decision. Make sure I get one that's running.
Yep. There's still some models, looking at it right here. The Jado does look like it's sold, but it does look quite pricey for what it is. The Nitro Rustler does look like that's available, and price comes up in Canadian, which is $483. I don't know if that's maybe $350 realistically USD, somewhere around that mark. Nitro Rustler would be a pretty good starting point, entry level, and that's good for 50 miles an hour. So that thing, the engines, they've typically been known to run hot and be a little temperamental around that kind of element of it, which really takes a good tune on the high speed needle to control. But generally, what I always recommend is you don't tune to temperature, you tune to sound and performance, and you get the maximum amount of performance out of it. And then you dial it back from there a little bit, just to make sure you're on the rich side of things when it comes to like nitro vehicles. Yeah, it's a fun element. You know, my background is mechanical, and this was right up my alley. I like the mechanical. You know, I talk a lot about electrical, but mechanical is actually my background. And this kind of just fits the bill. Knowing that you have this little tiny piston in there traveling up and down several thousand times a minute, making your radio controlled vehicle do 50 miles an hour, to me is just really cool. I don't know. Yeah, and it burns fuel. It makes noise. It, you know, shifts gears. Like some of these models, you can get them so it shifts gears. At one point, there was a Schumacher radio controlled vehicle out, and it had like a 3-speed transmission in it, and you can hear every step, every gear shift. It's just really neat when you hear that in person. Such a cool thing.
Absolutely. Sound like the dirt bikes.
Yeah.
Remind me of my dirt bike days.
Absolutely. Yeah. Except these things hit like 30,000 RPM upwards.
Absolutely. Dirty Matt said, to make the front wheels not balloon like pancakes, what oil would you recommend?
Okay. Yeah. Great question. Typically in a lot of my vehicles, what I do is actually kind of omit the idea of oil. I lock my center differential. If your your tires there on the front end are ballooning, you probably have a center differential. And what's happening is you accelerate, all the weight shifts to the rear. It lightens up the front end. Your front end, then all the power goes to the wheels that have the least amount of traction, which of course is no good. And then the tires actually lose their grip. They overspin in comparison to the rear wheels. And you get this sort of phenomenon happening where the balloon tires happen. I would just go heavy. If you're looking at the 500,000 weight or so, that's good for like a 1/10 scale vehicle. That's going to be pretty aggressive. Really depends on what you want to do there. If you want a full lock it, I had a video up on the channel where you can actually use one of those things that you put in your ear to block out the noise there. And you can throw that in the differential, pack it in there nice and tight. It locks it. What that's going to do, send all the power to front and rear equally. And you're not going to have those front tires balloon. And if you do, the rear tires are going to be ballooning too. So that's one option that you have. That's my preference, is to lock the center, but it does totally shift the means of how that vehicle is going to drive. It's going to bias towards the rear, and it's going to be a lot more touchy on the throttle. If you accelerate hard, you can expect that that vehicle could get the rear wheels kicked out sideways on you very quickly. And if you don't like that, that's when you can actually back that out and go to a lighter oil. Really test it out, see what you like, tune from there. That's kind of the nature of the hobby.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any experience with Traxxas? What is it called? The rotary mechanical. What is it called? The rotary mechanical. God almighty, what is it called? Not the ESC. Mechanical ESC. What is it called? I forgot the name
What
of
was
it.
it used for?
Huh?
What is this unit used for?
It's in the Traxxas Rustler.
Okay.
It's basically a mechanical ESC.
A mechanical ESC.
Yes.
Okay.
It has like a servo, a servo to make this thing go.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's a mechanical it's a mechanical speed control.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Mechanical speed control. Rotary mechanical speed control. That's what it is. Jeez Louise, I couldn't get it out.
Yeah. Do you know what vintage this comes from?
Huh?
Do you know what year this model comes from?
I'm not sure what year this is. This is a Traxxas Wrestler. I just picked it up a couple of days ago. I sold one of my 1/16 scale cars, and I found this online for $50. I talked them down to 40, and I bought it really to take it apart. And once I got it and looked at it, I was like, man, this car deserves to live on the way it is. Honestly, I mean, because the mechanical speed controller works. I actually was just driving this yesterday, so I was gonna, because I was gonna strip it down and build a 3-wheeler, because I'm building these 3D printed 3-wheelers that use the Traxxas Rustler rear end. So I found it so cheap, I was like, man, I can, use those parts and build another 3-wheeler. But once I got it and tested it, I said, man, this deserves to live on the way it is without any modifications.
Yeah, interesting. I haven't seen a mechanical speed control for at least 25 years or so, probably maybe even back to the 90s. So something like this, I can't exactly remember how it works, but essentially the idea behind it is that it has like a resistor. You rotate this drum or this plate on it, and it pretty much follows that resistor. And eventually, when you get close to 100%, it's giving you power directly to the motor. And they can only operate brushed motors. So it's not typical. It's a brushed motor that's going to be on that radio controlled vehicle. And it just dials the speed out. I remember having problems with one way back where it would lose the ability to control speed because that resistor component in there, the thing that controls the speed you're actually going, was essentially burning out. Didn't work anymore. And when that happens, it's like on or off. That's what I remember. But
yeah, I heard they give up quite often, but I was surprised this thing still works.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you got some history there.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty darn good. It doesn't look bad, doesn't look beat up. Chassis doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to know the year that thing was sold new.
I looked up a video that was posted 15 years ago advertising this right here.
Okay.
So I don't know. I want to say, I don't know. And that video was an old video. This was I want to say 94 model, maybe.
94. Okay, that makes sense, because the last time I seen one of these is in the 90s, and I remember playing around with resistors or whatever component allows you, it's like a swash pin that follows that resistor. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know where you'd be able to find parts on something like that. You might have to kind of source your own if something lets go inside of it.
I was already thinking maybe run it a couple times, make a video or two, and this will probably be a shelf queen. Just something to keep around.
Yeah.
Not anything that I'm gonna run a lot, you know, just maybe every now and then pull it off the shelf and run it a time or two, you know.
Yeah, that sounds good. You know, it's a piece of history right there. Everything these days is electronic speed controls, and that's because we're using brushless motors, you know, and we all know they're far superior than the brushed. Not that brushed is bad. It's just, if you want power, brushless is just so easy to get. It's also so easy to maintain. There's nothing to do there. You know, and the speed controls, we're also not needing to maintain them. You know, as long as they're reliable and we've got good brands that we're happy with, they go on forever. But that mechanical one, if that's let go, you're probably going to be sourcing electronics from an electronic store or electronic depot or place to get that populated again. I have not seen parts available if you needed to replace any of those pieces there.
Oh yeah, I hope it doesn't go out, but if it does, I do have another Traxxas ESC that I can just put in there.
Nice.
For a brush system, you know, and just call it a day.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? I appreciate everybody for joining. I see everybody out there in the chat. Brian, Nitro, Bob, J-Man, David Buckner, Randy, 1/10 Scale Performance, Dirty Max, Richard B, Watt, Fly 327, David Evans, G Carter, Max Paul. What's going on? Sergent J. Welcome everybody to the live, guys. Get traction. How you guys doing out there? Definitely appreciate you guys for tuning in. We have Mr. RC Explained in the house tonight, guys. You know how you ask the questions. Definitely put a question mark in front of the question before you write it, and then that way it will stand out in the chat. I see you had a little bit of experience with this Dumbo transmitter. What can you tell me about this Dumbo transmitter? Because I got one of these that came with this Traxxas Rustler. What can you tell me about this Dumbo transmitter?
Yeah, well, they're a very cost-effective solution for a transmitter, very similar to the radio link that I talked about earlier. I think you get a little bit more for the radio link, but in terms of the Dumbo, what I really liked about that is you could adjust the limits of the servo travel. And that was probably one of the biggest things that I really liked about that. It's very basic. So you're only dealing with dials. You don't need to learn a computer. You don't need to learn how to program. You don't need to learn how to go through the screen, the menu system that's built inside of most of these RC transmitters. You're just being very analog with that unit, with that transmitter. And you're able to control your trim based off of trim pots. It's got one for your channel 1 for your channel 2. I think you hit a combination of buttons and then you can enter channel 3 and channel 4 with the same dial pots there that's found under that door. So overall, just very basic. It comes with what you need to get going. They're very easy to use. You can also adjust. What I liked about them way back in the day, now you're bringing me in, you know, back to 2005, 6, 7, around there, where I didn't have a computerized radio. I'm sure they existed, but I didn't have that at that point. And I was using that. What I would really love about them is I could sit there, I could drive the vehicle off of just steering with that trim pot. It would be like fine-tuned driving, you know, not that you should do that, but I did it. And one of the things that I was able to do is dial in the trim of my radio control car so quickly, just by sitting there and just figuring it out as I'm driving at a speed of like 10 miles an hour, right? And that's what I find so cool about those analog radios. They still have a purpose today. That's what gets people in this hobby. You know, that's one of the first radios that they're picking up, and they work. And I think the range on that thing is incredible. It might be very similar to what that radio link, your entry-level radio links, can do as well. And it might be more than the Spectrums. Like I said earlier, the Spectrum, I ran out of range, and I think it was very small amount of range that I had, maybe 100 to 150 meters. So in feet, that's, I don't know, 400 feet, maybe not even. Maybe I wasn't even getting 100 meters. I didn't measure it, right? So I'm just going off of what I remember. And I think that Dumbo, for the price that you pay, would actually beat it in range, which is just really cool. And range is important for the guys that like to get their vehicle out there, you know, especially if you're going fast with a vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Linden, you picked up a newer version of the Dumbo transmitter, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Which one did you pick up?
The the Dumbo DDF30 something 60. This one right here, yeah, the DDF350 with the screen.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the range on this, it says 400 meters.
400 meters. Okay. What's that in feet?
Yeah, that's why I was trying to. What's that in feet?
400 meters to feet.
A whole lot.
Yeah, that's 1,300 feet. Like, that's kind of a big deal.
Ooh.
It's like a mile.
Hey,
Wow.
That's some serious range right there, Linden.
That's some serious range I can get with this.
Yeah. Yep. The vehicle is going to look really small at 1,300 feet away.
If you can even see it.
Yeah, you might be able to see it, but you won't know where it's going.
Yeah, no, I ain't gonna go that far with it. No.
Okay, I got one for you. Does a cat pack increase your speed on your RC car?
What do we all think? Any
No.
guesses before we get going?
I say no.
I say no.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Why would you say no for those, Linden?
I mean, I don't know if somebody explained it to me right, but they said a cat pack was like to help with the
power draw, no?
Say it again.
Would you say what?
I said with the power draw.
Yeah, that's what the cat packs was to help with the power draw.
Yeah, so you're kind of on the right track here, and that's what's important. So a cat pack is not actually going to increase the top speed. You're not going to really be able to see a difference in performance. I did a calculation. I had it on the board behind me, and it's not there right now. I must have taken it down. But we're talking like a very, very small fraction of a second where it's actually going to be able to apply power for, especially when your radio control vehicle is pulling hundreds of amps under acceleration. These tiny little caps won't do it. So what the purpose of cap packs are, and some manufacturers of electronic speed controls, they place this right on their factory ESC. And the reason I think they do that is because they build the ESC, then they realize they don't have enough protection on the capacitor side to help with the unit they have. So they add an extra set that's maybe mounted right on the input of the ESC. So not where the battery pack is, but as close as you can get to the ESC side of that device. And what it's doing is, you can imagine that when we're under partial throttle, so we're going to get into the electronic details here just so I can kind of go through and explain this. But if you imagine an electronic speed control, in order to manage the speed, what it's doing is it's applying full voltage to your motor. So if you have a 6S pack, you're essentially getting like that 6S voltage at the motor. But if you want to go slow, you can't have 6S voltage at the motor. What it does is it chops the signal up. So if you take that signal, instead of giving it 100%, your power signal that goes to the motor, you give it 1%. So 1% of the time, your electronic speed control is turning on that circuit to go and flow to the motor. So it's chopping it up literally like this, right? This is like 50%. Faster would be, a higher percentage that you're getting of on time to your motor. As this is happening, you're getting current from the battery pack that is flowing and then stops. Flowing and then stops. And it's this point where it stops that issues happen. You build what is known as ripple voltage in the ESC. And ripple voltage is what kills things. So if there's a big thing to take away here, there's multiple different ways to kill an ESC with ripple voltage. And having not enough capacitance is one way to do it. If you have lots of power that you're drawing from an electronic speed control, there's more potential to have a higher amount of ripple voltage. Another scenario too that I can throw into the mix here is if you have a battery pack that performs very weak, that's not going to help your ripple voltage. It can actually hurt your ESC. It can damage it. So weak battery packs can actually kill your electronic speed control through this concept, through this idea of ripple voltage. The capacitors, what they're designed to do is filter out this low dip, and it's going to even out that power draw because the actual FETs that are on an ESC don't like this thing called ripple voltage. If the capacitors get taken out, the FETs that are on your ESC board, they'll fail. And if they let go, you're going to see the smoke, the magic smoke that we want to keep inside that electronic speed control. You want it to stay there. So we want to, make sure that we keep that under control. And I like I said earlier, I run Castle Creations ESCs. These allow me to graph data. And one of those values is ripple voltage that you can capture and you can help manage it.
Wow.
Okay, let me see. Sensor motors versus censored versus sensorless. Which should you choose, and what applications should you choose each one of them? Which one? Hold on, let me see. How should I say this? Sensor versus sensorless. What applications require sensorless, and what applications require sensor?
Great question. So I'm going to open this up, if you don't mind, to all radio controlled applications, airplanes, boats, cars. And really what it comes down to, we'll start off with the car sector so we can really get a good understanding of this. When we're dealing with rock crawlers are typically driven in such a way where you probably hit 0 miles per hour a lot. You're on a rock, you're not sure exactly how you want to approach this, but you've got a tire that's propped up on one rock, you got another tire that's about to climb onto another one, you come to a full stop, and if you have a sensorless motor, your electronic speed control has to get in sync with that brushless motor. And if it is sensorless, it can't do it right away. So it's got to fire power to the motor, kick the tires, get the motor spinning up, and then it actually synchronizes it using the back EMF that comes from your brushless motor. And it's this process that makes it kind of ugly just to get going. So we're talking slow speeds in the sense of 0 to something that's moving, which could be like, only 3 miles an hour, let's say, and then you don't actually see a difference. But from this actual jump, if you got a rock crawler, you'll want to see maybe the potential to use that censored motor just to make it a little bit more easy on your way of kind of traversing the rocks and getting that vehicle up there. Rock crawlers are also geared down a significant amount, right? So you're going to see less of this actually being impacted, but anytime you get slow speed operation, this is where a censored motor comes in. My personal preference, even on my top speed run vehicles, because they are actually the opposite in terms of gearing, they're geared very high. I want to use a censored motor so I don't get a lot of that clicking. The clicking is just not good to my ears. I mean, it doesn't really hurt the motor. It can handle it. It's just going to turn into heat, anything that it wastes. But once that vehicle's moving, it doesn't matter anymore. I still prefer to have a censored brushless motor on my top speed run vehicle. And that's why I choose actually the Castle Creations over some of the TP motors that I have in a bin somewhere here. Then we switch into other applications where, let's say we're operating a boat or a radio controlled airplane, because both of these are very similar. A boat and an airplane operate in a fluid, and a fluid behaves very differently than roadway. Roadway, you can't budge, but water, you can. And air, it moves out of the way. We don't need censored motors for these types of applications because the startup is very low resistance on the propeller just to get it moving. We're trying to get the car moving. You got all the weight of the vehicle to start rolling and get moving. But a boat, you don't even need to get the boat moving. The propeller moves some water out of the way, and slowly it makes its way forward. So in those types of applications, sensorless works very well. If you put a censored motor on it, nothing's wrong. You're just adding weight and making it a feature that you really don't need. Same with electric ducted fan jets. Those also, you're not going to see a censored motor in there because it's overkill. You don't need it. So those types of applications work very well for sensorless, where censored's overkill. For radio controlled cars, personal preference on that 0 miles per hour, trying to get the thing moving. If you want it to be a very smooth transition from 0 to a few miles an hour, censored is the way to go. If you don't mind if it's a little jittery just to get going, once it hooks up and synchronizes, you won't see anything after that. So if you never stop the vehicle ever After that point, you're not going to notice too much between censored and sensorless. And a lot of censored brushless systems actually turn everything into sensorless mode. So that it uses the sensors to get it off the line from 0 miles an hour to that couple miles an hour. And once it gets up to a certain speed, it transitions entirely to sensorless mode. So you're actually getting all the advantages. And there's some significant advantages that you do get with sensorless. A lot of guys talk about timing. And if we shuffle into that topic, sensorless is definitely going to be the clear winner. I don't like the fixed timing that I get a lot of questions on. They're like, oh, what kind of timing do I want? You mentioned low, medium, and high. And I want to know how many degrees. But as soon as you talk about degrees of timing, you're talking about fixed timing. Sensorless avoids that, and it allows a range. And we can get into that if you want to as well.
Hey, keep it going. Don't stop now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So let's get into timing since we're right there. One of the things that is probably easier for us to maybe look at as a concept is our cars. You know, for those of us that are driving vehicles every day, we've probably heard of the different valve timing that we get on our vehicles. And in fact, many engines, if you look at Honda and Toyota, they got VTEC on the Hondas, you got VVTi on the Toyota engines. It's right there on the valve cover of an engine. And what it's doing is it's adjusting the timing of the valves, including also the spark of the engine. You can advance the spark or you can set it and leg it if you want as well, right? Depending on so many different elements of that engine, the load of the engine, how hard we're loading the engine. Maybe we're driving at constant speed, but it's loaded because we're pulling a trailer, or maybe we're under hard acceleration. So it's traveling through a big RPM band. Maybe what we're doing is we're just sitting there idling the engine and it's under no load. You take that concept because what's happening there is the engine is using all the information it's collecting with its sensors and it's changing and updating timing based off of those parameters. Same exact thing is happening in our brushless ESCs when our speed controls are in sensorless mode with timing that has that range capability. So I mentioned before, I use a lot of Castle Creations ESCs, and they don't have fixed timing in their sensorless options available for you. What you're doing is you're actually selecting a range of timing. So low represents you got timing from, this mark all the way up to this mark. And what's going to do is it's going to adjust within this range how it sees fit. Under high loads, it might want a bit of timing. Once the load of that motor begins to change, it's going to adjust the timing for us. What we can do as a user when we're programming it, I know, Linden, you showed one of those units where you can program your ESC, and you can select possibly the ability to use low, medium, or high. And all we're doing is we're selecting that range. Maybe the low is this range, medium is this range, high is this range. Right? So that's how we're able to alter the timing on these different units. When you're going and looking at a censored system, there we're stuck at using fixed timing. And fixed timing might be good, but the problem with fixed timing, it's only going to be good at maybe 1 RPM with a specific load under a specific, other parameters that kind of relate all to that. But outside of that, it's not the best. It might work. They're all going to work, but it's not going to be most optimized. And that's really where we get optimization with sensorless operating in that mode that allows a range of different timing selectable by the ESC when we select low, medium, or high.
Awesome.
Hey, listen, all I'm gonna tell you is I'm over here like a sponge. I'm trying to absorb everything. I want to recap one thing you said. You said, what did you call it? When the ESC ripple voltage. Ripple voltage. So ripple voltage can destroy your ESC. Yes. So that's probably what killed my Spectrum ESC, my Spectrum 6S ESC, ripple voltage, because it won't do anything right now. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, I went out for a speed run and I wasn't paying attention. I had the transmit on 50%, ran it, came back, let it cool for a second, ran it again, and it just died in the middle of the road, and it's been down ever since.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of issues I've seen with ripple voltage ends up with a smoky on fire ESC. And that's when it typically would damage the FETs, and you're going to visibly see something's wrong with them. You know, and what I mean by that is your car is smoking and on fire.
Oh, well, I'm glad I didn't experience that. No,
Okay.
I didn't experience that, but the ESC is dead. But I didn't experience that because I've tested it in several different cars, and I don't know, it just won't do anything.
Yeah, I had a Spectrum ESC in one of my airplanes. It was the 2.1 meter Cub that I owned. I recently sold it, more recently. But what happened is I was on water. I was ready to take off. I throttled up. It made some very strange noises and all of a sudden went pop. And I had smoke and fire billowing out underneath the body of the airframe. You know, it was smoking pretty good. And the flame was jetting out some of those vents on the plane. But I often wonder what happened there. It could have been a failure, internal fault with the ESCs. They're kind of complicated, right, with all the things that they're trying to do. So there's lots of reasons why they fail. And I'll never know the ultimate reason as to why that thing did fail.
Yes, I mean, you can only imagine what could have happened to make it just catch on fire like that, you know?
Yeah.
Could have been could it have been the battery, or was it the ESC?
It was the ESC in my case that lit up on fire. Yeah. I changed it out to a Castle and it was fixed.
Yeah, I've had a few Spectrum ESCs where, like, you know how, like, when you plug them in and they read the cell counts, they'll beep.
Yeah.
I've had them just stop beeping, and then from that point on, they don't work anymore.
Okay, yeah, that doesn't sound too good then. Yeah. It sounds also like there should be nothing wrong with it. You didn't abuse it. It's just you just stopped and you didn't even use it that day.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question. I have these two motors here, right, that I want to put in my Typhon 3S. They're both rated for 2 to 4S. One is this is a hobby wing. It's a 4268 2600 kV, and this is a Queen's Hobby racing product. This motor is rated. It's a 3665 2400 kV. So my question is, which speed will I be able to get the highest speed out of either one of these motors?
Yeah, which one was bigger of the two?
The hobby wing is bigger. It's a 4268.
And what was the kV on that?
2600.
I would be choosing the bigger motor with the higher kV. It sounded like that you had one option there where the bigger one actually was the higher kV. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would definitely be choosing that. I think, oftentimes it's more difficult when the bigger motor has a lower kV, but generally speaking, bigger motors are going to allow for bigger potential of power because they can dissipate more waste heat. Bigger motor, that's going to be your winner today.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Caffeine IV. Who is that with the caffeine IV? Somebody got a caffeine IV.
I got it tonight.
I heard
it. Hey, that's too funny. Brian's RC stuff said, why are not very few 4S or higher capable ESCs on the market? And he said not many options for speed running little RC trucks and cars.
Yeah, that was 4S or higher?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Like what you're diving into there is the potential of sales and the volume of sales and this type of thing in the industry. And what it kind of suggests to me is that these units aren't as popular as some of the 2S and 3S units that are sold for so many different vehicles. You can put a 2S ESC into a 1/10 scale vehicle and that'll work. Same with a 3S, that'll also work with the 1/10. But once you start to get to 1/8 scale, a 3S, it'll work, but you don't build power until you start moving into like what you're saying, 4S, 5, 6. So really, I think that's the reason. I wouldn't be able to fully answer that question because I think it depends more so on the business case for that particular solution that you're looking for.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Let me see.
All right, I have a question too. Now, can you mix ESCs with different motors?
Like you're talking brands?
Like, yes, brands.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
like I could mix a Castle with a Hobby Wing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you can mix any, yeah, the brand of ESC is not going to know what kind of motor is hooked up to it. You know, if we're talking like a typical sensorless motor, it's got 3 wires. You plug in those 3 wires. There's no data that tells them what serial or model number is hooked up to it. So a sensorless ESC is going to drive any sensorless brushless motor.
Okay.
That's going to be fair game.
So what about a sensorless and a sensor?
So if you, yeah, which one is censored? Is it the motor?
I had a Castle motor.
Yep.
The 2200 one you was talking about.
Okay.
It was censored, but I ran it in the Spectrum mode ESC.
Hold on 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. So that particular example that you gave, you can use a sensorless ESC with a motor if it does have a sensor on it. But what you're doing is you're not connecting up that sensor because there's no room for it. There's no port for it on the speed control, but it's going to totally run. All it's going to do is run in sensorless mode. So you've effectively turned your censored brushless motor into a sensorless because you're not using the sensors. But in many cases, like I've done that too on setups just because I you know, that's what fit and worked for that particular setup on one day or another.
Yeah.
Yep, works. You could do the opposite too. You can have a censored ESC with a sensorless motor, but the sensorless ESC, as long as it can operate in a sensorless mode, it's also going to work. And most of the products that are sold today can handle both. If it already has the higher technology, the censored version, it's going to be able to do the sensorless. I haven't come across too many that are just one only.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
It's good because we get the cross compatibility there.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, no worries.
So, all right. We know you don't really show too many RC cars and things on your channel, but
Yes.
What is your favorite RC car that you have owned or own currently?
Great question. Very easy for me to answer. I ended up getting into Limitless model, and I would have to select that one. I'm trying to, you know, fight between what is better, V1 or V2. I think they actually both have a purpose. I don't think V2 is necessarily better than V1. I mean, it is in certain aspects, but not every aspect.
Sorry for that.
It's all good. Yeah. Another reason I like the Limitless is because I'm a speed guy. I like to go fast, and the Limitless is the platform that allows me to do that. Right now, I have, I think, 3 Limitlesses, and each one of them is set up a little bit differently. One is on 8S, one is on 6S, one is also on an 8S with a little bit more of a tamer setup. And I have them set up in such a way where one is top speed, but one is like more of a road course style. So it doesn't really go that fast. And that's, you know, the V1, because I can gear it differently. It allows me to be able to achieve that. And that model is just a lot of fun. You can bring that anywhere. You know, people love it. You know, friends love it. They like to drive it around too. So it's just a great model that ultimately performs very well. I've not had a lot of issues in terms of components break on it. I mean, I took it at 150 kilometers an hour into a telephone pole or an electric pole, and I mean, it doesn't fare too well there. The whole thing was totaled, but you know, you can't do that at 150 kilometers an hour, which is, I forgot about this, 90, 80, 85, 90 miles an hour, something like that. Yeah, just a great model. 2 of them. I still haven't painted the body though. I don't know what I want to do when it comes to painting, and I haven't bought the paint to actually paint it. So I run it with a clear, transparent body. I can see all the guts inside, which is maybe good for me. I like to keep tabs on everything, but still trying to figure that type of thing out. But I would have to definitely select the Limitless for me. And do I think it's the best RC out there? No. But for me, I just love the Limitless. It's just pretty good.
Yeah, I think I get the most stops with my Limitless when I'm out with it. They love it. They say, "Oh, that looks like the F1 race car." And the question they ask is, "How fast does it go?"
Yeah, exactly.
They
right?
they love that question, man.
And what do they say when you tell them how fast?
Oh, they be like, "What?" They be like, "Can I see you do it?" I be like,
"No,
not really." Because like that's a distraction.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, I got to concentrate on my speed runs because if you ask me a question while I'm doing speed run, that's like gonna throw me off, and I don't want my car to blow up.
You know how it is. Anytime somebody asks you to say, "Let me see you do it," when you try to do it in front of somebody, disaster strikes. Every time. Like you can go out there on that road by yourself and run 100 times back and forth, no problems. Soon as somebody's standing out there watching you, it's gonna get tragic.
It's taking flight for sure.
You know what I have to say to that though? Like I do have something that can kind of semi-challenge that. And that is, I 100% agree with the radio controlled cars because I do feel they take a lot more concentration. But in terms of the jets, radio controlled jets, guys are like, "Hey, I want to see that fly." Okay, sure, right? You have so much more freedom in the air. You have all the airspace to go fast. You don't need to fly 5 feet off the ground. You can take it up and make a pass at 50 feet. And as you get more comfortable, take it down. So when somebody asks, how fast can I see a pass? You give them a 50-footer. No pressure, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the road is only so wide.
Then you got cars parked on the side of the street. You got people walking dogs. All types of stuff, man. It's a liability for sure.
Yeah. So I always, for me, airplanes is the real deal for just what you can do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When they ask me, can they see that car go that fast? I'll be like, yeah, anytime you want, go on my YouTube.
That's a great answer. I like that, Louie. That seals the deal for you. Then maybe you get a subscriber. They just get everything with that one. Excellent.
So, what is your favorite airplane? What's your favorite airplane?
Yeah, are we talking like electric or just open?
Favorite airplane all around.
Yeah, and I have to say are you familiar with the Boomerang Sprint?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
The Boomerang Sprint, it's a turbine powered aircraft. They appear in some videos that I make. Anytime that I need to show it for one reason or another, it makes an appearance. I do have a second channel that is extremely small that I show more radio control vehicles running and that sort of thing. And I'm getting more into that type of thing, especially as summer approaches here. That plane is just, I can't say more than enough about turbines and those type of aircraft. I mean, it takes a long time to save up for them. Like you have to sacrifice. I drove an old vehicle for a very long time. It was 20 years old. And then, you make the move to one of those and you maintain it. You do everything you need to do. And the satisfaction and the thrill of it is just incredible. I've never had something where you're traveling at 120 miles an hour and I can still plant the throttle for the last little bit I get and I can take it straight vertical. And you can see it's still building speed, very rapidly. And then you could do that for 6 minutes at a time. And the sound it makes is incredible. The smell you get from it is incredible. It's just such a thrill. I would say that that's probably like the peak of RC for me. And I'm just having an absolute blast with it.
This one right here, I'm looking at. This right here looks unbelievable. Wow. Smoke and everything coming out of the back of this thing.
Yeah, it's a very fun, radio control vehicle to get into. If you haven't seen a turbine model in person, I would highly recommend any RC enthusiast, go to your local flying field, talk to the guys, find out when they're going to have one of those in the air and visit on that minute, right? And see one of them fly. It's a great experience. I had one guy, I live in Hamilton here in Ontario, Canada, and we have a Warplane Heritage Museum, and it has one of 2 flying Lancaster bombers in the world. So fortunate enough, again, to be able to see this plane every weekend. It's flying up over top of my house. And there's a guy who volunteers there. He was at the flying field that day, and he likes jets. He likes old vintage airplanes as well, full size. And he just couldn't believe this model that I was flying around and how realistic it was. And, you know, he wanted to go through every bit of it. And he was there for probably like an hour and a half, just talking about every detail about it. He wanted to learn how it all works. And because there's a lot of sophistication that you don't see under the cockpit of this particular airplane, right? But yeah, just very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
That
awesome.
thing looks so cool, I'm telling you. Okay, next thing. You went over it you brushed over it, but you moved real quick.
Okay.
What's the name of that other channel so we can put it in the chat so the guys can check it out?
It's got to see. I do have it in the link that I use.
Oh, it's on your channel?
I think I saw it.
Velocity Vision. Yeah. And then I have in brackets RC Explained. So Velocity Vision, and then I put even in brackets RC Explained, so you know it's me. It appears in the description of probably more of my recent videos. And that one, it's very small. I don't have too many videos up on there, but that's where I'm trying to do things. I've been doing a lot with 3D printing as well. That kind of has slowly showed up in terms of the boat form of RC. Boats have been a thing that I've enjoyed in the past, and
That's it.
Yeah, boats are fun. I like boats.
I don't think that one.
Yeah, I got it. I'm dropping it in the chat right now.
I'm gonna drop the link too in the chat.
I got it right here. Let me see.
Yeah, I typically put it under the description, second channel for fast RC cars and jet content. I also have electric jets that I fly, and I think I've posted already a couple of them on that channel. I also commentate a little bit on that too, so it's not just watching something fly around for a little bit. I'll explain a few details here and there.
Oh, okay.
Going fast is fun, so you'll see it there.
Nice. Well, it's definitely in the chat. The guys definitely can go check that out.
Yeah, I threw you a subscribe.
Yeah, I got that. I subscribed.
Right on, appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir. Yes, sir. Just subscribed.
Yeah, sir. We all on board.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
So what type of 3D printer are you using? How long have you been using it? And what has been your longest print?
A lot of questions. Okay, so I bought a printer in 2014 for a business that I had. And that one was a MakerBot. If you've heard of the MakerBot, it was a 5th gen. It was just when they came out. They literally just came out. I had it on order. I had to wait for a bunch of time, and then I got delivered. I had a bunch of problems with the print head, but that got sorted out after maybe a year and a half or so. And then I got more into RC parts, and I've printed parts that kind of appeared in videos here and there. And you've seen on that channel, the new one that you just sent a link there, I did show full-size boats, radio-controlled boats, of course, being printed and used. I think they're just of it being used. I'll get more into the actual build of it. A build time, like one part or all the parts, I think all the parts would have taken on my Creality 3D printer about 5 days worth of printing. And then I got the whole boat out of it. My printer is very slow. It's the Creality that has a nice, good form factor. You can print 18 inches by 18 inches by 18 inches. So I went for volume over speed. I got time to wait. I can let it run overnight and that sort of thing, and then wake up next day, grab my part. Been very successful with it. Also printed a bunch of different components. If something breaks on these models that we have that you can't buy parts for, what I do for a profession, I run a design team. So what I'm able to do is use my skills there to design and create parts. And that sort of thing allows me to replace these models that no longer have parts available for them. I can design parts and build them, and they're not going to be the same as the molded ones that come out of a mold. made out of nylon, but they work. And if I crash and it breaks again, I print a new one, throw it in, and I'm good again,
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I just recently got my 3D printer and I'm loving this thing. It's just the possibilities are endless when it comes to a 3D printer.
They are indeed. Yeah. Which one do you have?
I got the Bamboo Labs A1 Mini.
Okay. Yeah. The Bamboo Labs, they've been really, stepping up in recent years. And I think they've claimed the #1 spot.
Yeah, and then I've seen a lot of companies are saying that they're going to discontinue some of their printers, and the prices on the printers are getting so low. It's like, oh my goodness, $90 and $80 for a 3D printer with an enclosure. That's almost unheard of. But the only thing is, once it breaks, it's probably over with,
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, if you're just trying to get into it and learn 3D printing, it'll be something to start with. And if it breaks, it breaks,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that it's still, we haven't hit the peak of 3D printing. I think we're still just kind of, getting started and learning what the potential of it. You can get lots of different models. And I'm sure you've seen it. I think you did a 3D printing thing the other day. Maybe it was even yesterday. I don't know. But the potential that you can do, you can build a radio control vehicle from ground up, zero
Absolutely.
all the way to complete.
I'm actually working on something right here. I've been printing.
Yep, let's see
It's
it.
a 3-wheeler. I took it apart. I took the front head of it off, the front end of it off, because I'm swapping it out. I actually printed up. Matter of fact, I can show you. I printed out a different steering, head, and I can put triple tree, and I can put the Losi Pro Moto forks on this and mount it on here.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna be able
nice.
to put a better suspension on the front of this thing.
Right.
And of course, it's running the Traxxas Rustler rear end. That's why I bought the other Traxxas Rustler, because I was going to build a second one. But hey, I think I'm just going to have one and have a Shelf Queen Rustler.
There you go. Yeah, that's really cool. Being able to, you're almost like creating something what you wanted. You probably picked that model. You wanted a 3-wheeler, and then you get to, select it, pick it, probably really cost effective, build it up into a full RC.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is so rewarding, seeing something that you picked out and started printing, and it's turning into a useful RC very soon. Just a few more screws and things like that, and
Exactly.
I'll be able to drive it.
Yep, right on. Love to see that type of thing. Yeah, I'm trying to get more into that thing, the design aspect. And what I'm trying to do is eventually come out with a website. And I haven't mentioned this anywhere on my channel. So for those who are listening, this is brand new news here, launched today. Starting out with radio control boats and then moving into other platforms. Maybe I'll do a car. I'll design a car, and maybe even a plane. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely want to print out some planes and things like that. I printed out a little glider a couple weeks ago, and it turned out pretty darn good. Got 2 different colors on it.
Nice.
Well, actually 3, because that's gray,
Yeah.
then blue, and then I got red. So
Really cool. Have you tried it?
absolutely not. I gotta buy the little motor and things that go on it. It's called a Power Up 4.0.
Yeah.
It's basically a little unit that can bind to your cell phone and has a little motor on the back, and you can fly it with your cell phone, and you can use it on paper airplanes, but you can also put it on this thing right here, this little glider. I got to print out another side right here.
That's cool.
To go right here, but yeah, it's pretty darn cool, man.
Yeah, I think it's something that'll bring the cost down of the hobby. If you want to get into it, you can build your own. You can buy the electronics that you purchase. If you understand how to do that, you'll get yourself a really cool deal, and you'll be able to print exactly what you want.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's the main reason why I'm happy with my purchase of this 3D printer, because I can print out cars, boats, planes, tools, literally anything,
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because I printed out this little screw gauge the other night when we was on live, and this thing right here definitely comes in handy.
Nice. Okay, so that tells you the size. That's what that was.
And the
Yeah,
length.
the size and the length of it.
Okay, perfect. I think I need to print myself one of those.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Very
Pilot Ryan Media was over here. He was telling me when he first got his 3D printer, he said everybody normally prints out the little benchy, the little boat. He said I've been printing out tools. So I said, what is that? Show it to me. Showed it to me, and I started printing it, and came out pretty darn good. I stopped the print like 3 minutes, like at the last 3 minutes, and swapped the color so the lettering would be black instead of it just being all red.
Nice.
So it came out pretty darn good. I also
Nice.
printed out this little tool holder. I haven't put any tools in it yet.
Okay.
I got pins in it right now, but
It's doing something.
yeah.
Love to see it.
And
we got a question. We got a question in the chat from GNCRC RC. He said, question, what's the effect of using a too small of a lipo on the ESC? Other words, under spec.
Too small in terms of capacity and C rating. I'll kind of, tackle that both. C rating, yeah, we talked a little bit about that earlier. And really what it comes down to is that ripple voltage that we're going through. If you underspec the C rating, there is potential that you can get into ripple voltage concerns and issues, but there's also a lot more dependencies. It's not just straightforward and that simple. So you might be okay, but you're definitely at risk with an undersized C rating. And then the same thing with capacity, if you also meant this, or I'll even add this on. If you have a small lithium polymer battery pack, capacity also relates itself into that continuous discharge rate that the battery pack is capable of providing. And if it can't do it, very similar to what we just went through with C rating, you're going to run into ripple voltage concerns, ripple voltage issues, and you're really just going to be pushing that battery pack. One of the things to always watch out for, which is very easy, you're not going to be able to measure ripple voltage too easily, but when it comes down to temperatures, this is something that we all can measure very easily with very inexpensive tools. I think for $20 USD, maybe even lower than that these days, you can get yourself a nice reader that can measure temperature, and just make certain that your absolute maximum is no more than 140 Fahrenheit. You might be okay, let's say, for example, with ripple voltage where ESC does not get destroyed because of that. However, if you have a small capacity, small C rating, but you're pulling a lot of power from it, you might get into your lithium polymer battery pack jumping up in temperatures. And if you're seeing that kind of temperatures, then it's time to kind of ease back on it. And easing back can be as simple as gearing down and changing your setup so you're not drawing as much power from that particular system and battery pack specifically.
As far as checking the temperature, what device would you use? Would you just use something like have you ever tried that what is it called, the Sky RC thermo logger or something like that?
The thermal logger, I know what you're talking about. You can go very straightforward and basic and simple and get one of those. I think Duratrax? They have thermometers out. We have a store here in Canada. It's known as Canadian Tire. I don't know what the equivalent store in the US would be. We got a Princess Auto. I don't know if there's a Princess Auto in the US.
I've never heard of it.
Your general tools type store. That's what I'm kind of trying to touch on here. And that type of store should have a thermometer based, I don't know, the infrared guns that you can measure temperature.
Oh yeah. I know about those. Yes.
Yeah, and if you're using one of those, like that's already a high quality unit that can discover temperatures for you. You aim it at what you're trying to measure, you pull the trigger, and you get a readout. And that type of thing, I'm telling you, it's going to save you because you're going to know if you're over the maximum temperatures, especially if you're building. There you go. Who makes that one?
I got this off Amazon. I think this was only like $10.
$10. See, there you go. Yeah, for $10, you know you can be safe from a thermal point of view, and that's more than half the battle is just keeping your temperatures in check. I often tell guys that if you build your system for the first time, let's say you build a boat as a good example, you throw in your speed control and everything, your motor and your battery pack system, you make your first run in a boat, but you don't go out for the full duration of the battery pack. You actually go out for just a minute, and then you come back in, and then you measure your temperatures. Now, if you have telemetry, if you're fortunate enough to be able to get a hold of that technology, throw it in the boat, then you got that information right away. You get your temperatures read right to you, right? And then you'll know where you're at. But if you don't have that capability, you bring it back in after a minute, you rip the tape, the hatch tape off, you open up the hatch, you check your temperatures as quickly as you can get in there, and your heat gun is good to go. I see heat gun in the chat as well. Yeah, so I use a heat gun to shrink wrap my wires.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Joe said Princess Auto in Canada is Harbor Freight in the US.
Harbor Freight. Yeah. So I've heard of that one. Yep.
Love Harbor Freight, man.
There we go. There's yeah. Thanks to whoever said that.
Joe Gurdon.
Joe Gurdon.
Joe. Is Joe an American or Canadian?
Good question.
That's a good question.
He knows the princess.
We got a couple of guys that, man, we have people that hang in the chat we have people from all over the world.
Of course.
Yeah.
Barbados, Canada, Wales.
Joe
US.
Gurdon said he's American.
American,
okay.
Right on. Yeah, so you know Princess Auto. That's cool. Harbor Freight. I've never been in the store, but I've been on the website. Love it.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we got one. Yep.
Yeah, I got one of those. One of those heat guns from. I got one of those from Harbor Freight as well.
Most of my tools come from there too.
Yeah, Harbor Freight for the rescue.
Yeah. I'll call the things that we're referring to as temp guns. I don't know what the actual. It's probably
that's what we call it too. Temp guns.
Temp guns. Yeah. Infrared.
Yeah, but I have see, I have the Spectrum Smart Controller, the DX5C Smart. So I get the temperature on the controller.
Okay. So
so it tells me the temperature on my transmitter.
Right. And if you have that type of information right at your fingertips, you're set. So what you have is capabilities to probably set limits on there. So your radio can beep and, warn you in all kinds of different ways, vibrations and all this type of stuff. That's the best way to have it. But like I said earlier, I don't have telemetry on my boats. I don't have telemetry on my cars. And there's ways to also get this to work.
Gotcha. Just Bashinit. What's going on? How you doing?
Just Bashinit.
What's up, Just Bashinit?
Yeah.
Let me see. RC Player said turbo boost in the new hobby wing. Usually it smokes.
Yeah, I've heard that about hobby wing with that turbo setting too. I think it's just adding timing, right? Or
the turbo boost. That's what. Yeah, I had this come up. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think what it is related more to that fixed timing that we were talking about earlier, and it makes adjustments off of that. Off the top of my head, it's a marketing term used for a specific concept that's built into the ESCs. I like to operate all of my radio control vehicles in sensorless mode, which then uses the full range of timing, and it doesn't limit you to these certain specific things. I think that's the best way to run your ESC if you have the capabilities of doing that. I think you get the best type of performance to low-end performance and high-end performance. It's very similar to your car, right? You're not operating in a very slim boost margin with your car. Your valves and your spark plug is constantly adjusting based off of all the parameters, the temperature, the load, the acceleration, all these types of things of the engine. And you want that same thing happening within your electronic speed control if you got it.
Absolutely. Let me see. We got any more questions in the chat? Y'all got anything for him? Linden, you got anything? What? Louie?
Let me see. Can we talk about KV?
Sure.
On motors. All right. So What's the difference between a high KV and a low KV?
Yeah, there's really like that's
I'll be
such
right
a
back.
yep. There's it's such a generic type of thing. It's very relative. A high KV for many people probably refers to something over 2,200, 2,500. A low KV probably references something under that 2,000 mark. And really what it comes down to is the KV is going to be able to be selected to match your setup. So if you think of it as low KV with a high cell count, high KV with a low cell count. So think of it as a 2S battery pack. When you're running a 2S battery pack, your KV is probably going to be somewhere around 4,500, 5,500. It depends primarily on the vehicle and the application. So this is not specific. I can't give anything specific, but just for generic terms, this is what it would work out to. And then if you're talking like a high cell count, like 8S on a system or 12S on a system, if you're looking at 12S on a system, you're probably going to be under 1,000 kV because you got so much voltage that's going to be able to multiply by that kV value to get that high RPM.
Okay.
Yeah, I always see the debate for like 8S rigs, especially. It's usually people run 800 kV and gear it up, or they run the 1100 and leave it at like a 15 or a 16 tooth pinion.
I see. Yeah. So my 8S setup on my car is running a 2,400 kV. You know, and that's
crazy.
Yeah, it's where you get into that danger zone where your gearing needs to be set up. Here's a great example. The first time I went and took the limitless gearing and put this into my calculator online, I came out and I thought I had conservative gearing, and it told me that my limitless was going to go like 280 miles per hour. And you know that if it's saying it's going to do 280 miles per hour, bad things are going to happen. That's not realistic. Yeah. Right? I don't want something that has the potential for 280 miles an hour. Yeah, you're going to need to pull like 1,000+ amps to even approach that speed, and you're probably not going to hit it, right? It's extremely difficult to crack the 200 mile per hour mark even there. So that's one of the things that comes into play with these higher kV brushless motors running on high cell counts. You definitely want to pay attention to the actual speed that your vehicle is in theory supposed to hit, and compare that to a realistic number. The 280 miles per hour, in my case, not realistic for my setup. I don't want to be going any more than the 130, 140 miles an hour. So I geared it down to be able to do that more realistically using just numbers. I put gearing in there. I hit the enter key after I put the gearing. It tells me, okay, now I'm down to 220 miles an hour. Change the gearing. Now it says 180. Change the gearing in the calculator. Now it says 150. Now I'm getting there, right?
What gearing you got in the V2?
The V2 does not use a stock spool. So in the V2 Limitless, I've taken that stock spool gear out and I've put a 45 tooth spur gear, which is actually a 45 tooth pinion gear that uses an 8mm bore. That actually goes right on the stock shaft where that spool was. And then from there, I'm able to drop the pinion size because I just increased that spur gear size. I got the pinion somewhere around 27 tooth. So I'm running 27/45, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I tried that with the I don't think I had the right pinion gear, the bigger pinion gear that I was using for a spur, because mine wouldn't fit properly. I had to try to spin the spur around backwards, and I had to put a bunch of shims inside there to make it work, and I ain't like the way it was sitting, so I just went back to the regular one.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. I have shims in mine as well.
Okay. And it works? It's no problem?
It's no problem. I did have to shift it in a way that it worked for me. So instead of the gear being more towards one direction, I'm actually more towards the opposite direction.
So your spur is not right over that hole that's in the chassis.
Correct.
Yeah. You sound like you did the same thing I did.
Actually,
and I didn't like the way it was sitting, so I moved it. Yeah, you look like you. That's the same thing I tried.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not sitting over top of that hole.
Yeah.
Yes.
The long part of the gearing is facing the back. That's supposed to be facing the front.
Front.
Right. But this
Oh,
here
okay.
works. So you don't need to have it over that hole. In fact, you know, it's I don't think there's any risk in doing it this way.
I think they put it over the hole just in case if something go inside there, it won't be bouncing off the chassis back and have risk of bouncing back inside there.
Yeah,
fall down in the hole.
Yeah, you definitely don't want like a rock to get picked up and jam itself and get squeezed on the chassis.
Yeah,
that would be bad, you know. But again, I've been running this for I don't know how many, you know, runs I've done on it now, but a couple years, no problem. I've also done this with other vehicles. I've shifted things around and I don't align it with that specific hole. There's definitely a pinch point where if a rock goes in there, it's going to get pinched. But I think when you're spinning so much RPM to really get pinched and wedged in there, it needs to come in with a lot of force. And if it only comes in with a very light force, it's probably going to get kicked off to the side or something.
I think it'll crush the rock. I don't think a rock is
Yeah, it depends on what kind of rock it is. But yeah. That could definitely happen too.
Wow, that looked exactly like what I tried, because I kept saying I didn't want to put that because the V2, the smallest pinion gear you could put in there is the 32. And I was like, I ain't want that big gear inside there because my motor get hot a little bit faster than what I wanted to get hot.
Right.
I want to shrink it down to like a 28, maybe, you know, between a 28 and a 30.
Yep.
And it won't allow you unless you change that spur gear. And I tried to change it, and I did the same thing that you did, but I didn't like the way it was sitting. So I was like, I'm gonna just go back to the original. And I just went back and pushed the gear up to 32.
And that's fair. You know, there's going to be a lot of guys that disagree with the way that I have it set up just because of that potential, you know, but for me, it works. And if a rock does get jammed in there and that's what happens, I'll go buy another spur gear and try it again. You know, I don't see it as too much of a risk. I
just didn't like it wasn't that it was a jam of a rock going in there. I just didn't like the way it was sitting. Like it wasn't sitting over that hole. It wasn't, you know, the way it's supposed to be, the way the factory made it. So I was like, nah, I don't want to take no chances. I just got the limitless. I was like, I don't want to take no chances and mess this thing up, man. But I don't know, I might change it back. Because, you know, when I did it like that, it ran a lot better than what it runs now.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like the gearing that I have in there. It's a lot more comfortable. This has the high RPM. This is the 2400 kV motor that's in there right now, and it's running on 8S. So under load, I'm somewhere around 60,000 RPM, you know, 55 to 60,000 RPM under load. Yeah, it works very well.
I have a question. Have you ever ran 1-to-1 ratio gearing in your limitless?
1-to-1 in the V1, yes. But to do that, it was not this motor that was in there at the time. It was a different motor, and that was closer to, I don't remember the exact kV value, whether it's 1200 or 1600 or somewhere around that mark. It was also on 8S. So yeah, gearing, whatever works is ideal. It doesn't matter what the ratio is, as long as it makes sense in terms of a realistic speed that you can achieve and your motor has enough power to be able to drive it to that speed, right? You're checking temperatures to make sure you got the right gearing. If you throw wrong gearing in it, you're going to notice really quickly when your motor is on fire, right? And I don't mean literally on fire, but just being really hot. If your motor's hot, you know to dial it back, right? Or don't run it as long. So luckily for us, we can do that. And that's what we do with our top speed runs. We make a pass, maybe two at most, and we bring them in and let them cool. My motor is typically the thing that's the bottleneck. My speed control, actually, the Castle XLX2s, I got a few of them, and they're rock solid. I have not had any issue. I know there's guys on my channel who said, yeah, I toasted like 3 of them. I haven't experienced that. Some guys have, but the temperature they hit is a lot lower than the temperatures that the motor here is hitting from my personal experience.
So I got a question for you. Do you use any hobby wing or are you straight Castle?
I don't currently use any hobby wing. I've used a Turnigy, if I'm saying that correct, speed control for airplanes in the past. I have a couple models of theirs, but not for the cars. I've only had Castle in the cars. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to get into Castle. I just feel they're a little more complicated than the Hobby Wing. Like with the Hobby Wing, I could throw that in there with basically any motor and it'll run like how I want it to. You know what I'm saying? Where I don't have to go into the data logs and look at all the data and see, you know, wherever I'm going wrong, or if I'm geared too high or whatever.
For sure. Yeah. You use what works best for you. From my point of view, like I would say the same thing. I can pick a motor, I can throw it in there. I don't need to look at a data log. It's just I use a lot of data logs to kind of back up what I'm talking about on the channel. So I like to review the data and have a good understanding. So when I speak, it's coming from data. A lot of the stuff and concepts that I bring to the channel is always proven with either a professional engineering background or a data set that I'm dealing with. But use what works best for you that fits your application. That's what the hobby's all about, right? We tinker within what we like, what we enjoy, what we can get a hold of. And it doesn't matter what's under the hood of our cars. When you see it go 100 miles an hour, I don't know what's inside that thing, right? It's fast and it's cool and I enjoy it.
Right. All right. So I know you said something about the Turnigy. Have you ever used their motors, Turnigy motors? Because I bought one.
Yes, so I have used their motors. I've used their outrunners. So, you know, a lot of the in-runners we've been talking about in the channel or in the video here today, but for outrunners, I've used Turnigy. Their model is the SK3, and I have a bunch of various sizes that I've used. Those are the only ones that I've used. I haven't really bought an in-runner from them. I think they do offer them, but the outrunners, I've had a lot of great experience with those.
Okay.
Yeah, do you use them?
I bought one, but I haven't used it yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of still brand new to their motors.
Okay. Is it an in-runner style?
I think it's something like this. It's basically a motor like this.
Yeah, so that would be your typical in-runner style.
In-run, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent.
And I noticed that some of their motors are like it says some of their motors are capable of 5S, 7S, and 9S.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was wondering, like, how would you be able to run like a 7S or 5S batteries for those motors?
Yeah,
like
we have a guy at the flying field, and his airplane runs on 14S, and he buys 7S packs. So he takes two 7S packs, he puts them in series to get his 14S, and that works for him. In the case of 5S, if you can get a battery pack, and this is what I would recommend, trying to limit the total number of batteries that you're actually using with an application. But if you can't find a battery pack that's in a 5S spec, then what you can do is buy a 3S, buy a 2S, make sure they are identical in capacity, make sure they're identical in C rating, just for the sake of simplicity and making sure that it makes the most sense, and then run those in series. So each battery pack is going to have a positive, negative wire coming out. Running in series means you're taking the positive of one battery, and that jumps right into the negative of the other battery. And then the remaining two leads, you're going to end up with a positive and negative that run to your electronic speed control.
Okay.
That'll give you a 5S.
Okay. Thanks. Great info. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could put a 3S and a 2S battery on the same.
Yeah, me neither. I never knew that.
Together. I didn't know you could do that.
Yes.
I always was told you got to put the same exact battery if you're going to run two of them.
Yeah, it depends on how you wire it. So if it is a series relationship we're talking about here, we're trying to add the voltage. We can place a 3S battery in series with a 2S battery. That'll work no problem. That's essentially what your 3S is. It takes three individual cells, it puts them all in series, and you get the 3S. It's all just one S's in series. So what you're doing is you're creating that 5S, but with two packs instead of all individuals in one pack.
Got you.
Yeah, so I do want to touch on this too, Louie, because you made a good point there about, you've heard this, right? That you can't run different voltages in the same radio control vehicle. And this is true if you're going to place those battery packs in parallel. So if you take a 3S pack and you place a 2S pack, if you do that in parallel, that's bad news. Why? Because that 3S is going to want to charge your 2S. And if you charge your 2S battery with 3S voltage, you can imagine what's going to happen there. You're going to end up with a 2S that is going to go over voltage. It's going to heat up. You're going to have problems with fire.
The magic smoke.
Magic smoke.
Yeah,
It's coming out.
Smoke inside, guys. Let's do this.
So every time I use that, I'm gonna say shout out to RC Explain.
There you go.
Sir.
Right on.
Hey, that's a good one right there.
Yup, magic smoke.
Yeah, I see a comment there. Is there a diagram for putting batteries in series? Yeah, there's probably a bunch of diagrams. I know I've had some on my channel, RC Explained, and I show series versus parallel. And I have diagrams in the video. I'm sure you can even Google like a generic LiPo series wiring and click the image button on a Google search, and you're going to get diagrams that show what that looks like and what you should see. Because what I would always say is make sure you validate what you're looking at and have some idea of the concept. And the concept of series is you're taking the two leads of a battery. You're taking one of those two leads of a battery, let's say it's the positive, and that runs to the negative on battery number 2, right? So you actually have a joint. And it's really important that you make sure that that joint is not connecting the positive and negative of one battery alone. Then you short out the battery and bad things happen, right? But then you're going to be left with two remaining leads, a negative on battery 1 and a positive on battery 2. And those go to your electronic speed control. Yeah, the flip side of that is parallel wiring. We can quickly just talk about that. Parallel wiring is if you have your two batteries again, positive and negative on battery 1, battery 2, you take the positive lead on battery 1 and you pair it with the positive lead on battery 2, and you take the negative of battery 1, you terminate it with the negative on battery 2, and then you take that new set and you run it to your electronic speed control. There's going to be different advantages that you get with each setup here. Series, you're adding voltage, where if you place in parallel, you're adding capacity. C rating does not change. This is a common question I get on the channel. If I go and place battery packs in different combinations, what happens to C rating? C rating is a constant. It never changes. So if you put in parallel or you put in series, a 50C battery pack is still 50C.
Gotcha.
And same with that overall system. So if you place battery 1 with battery 2 in parallel, and they're both 5,000 milliamp hour, in parallel means you're going to get 10,000 milliamp hour. But if you are using 50C battery packs, it's not 100C, it's 50C. You gain the extra discharge capacity with those battery packs being in parallel. In that case, our 50C battery pack, 50 multiplied by the new capacity of 10,000 milliamp hour, 50 times 10 is going to give you 500 amps of continuous discharge. So a little bit of math there, and that's how it all works out.
RC Player said Hobby Wing more durable, but Castle more data.
Yeah.
Then he said RC Player said the old Max 6 and I guess the Max 8 I used until the wires disintegrated. Castle won't last that long.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't reached a point in using Castle since 2006 where I've destroyed an ESC for my car or for an airplane. I actually had an airplane that had thousands of runs on it, and I gave that to a friend, the whole plane. I gave it to a friend. He's still using it today. I bought that thing somewhere in that time frame. Yeah, I don't have evidence to support that one is more durable than the other, but I will let you know if I'm able to burn one up.
Awesome.
I think Castle gets a bad rep. I think just because their ESCs are unlocked. So you can pretty much do whatever you want with them, which is the cause of people having problems with them because they, like as you said, they'll overvolt them, try to put 1 billion volts through it with 1 billion kV, like you were saying, and it's just not good for it, obviously, you know. Whereas Hobbywing won't really let you do that; their stuff's kind of locked.
Yeah, you can get into trouble, especially the current. So I have an XLX2, a few of them, and I myself have seen 500 amps being drawn from it. I have guys who have sent me graphs of 750 amps was the maximum that I've seen, like 750 amps being pulled in a top speed run car. That is absolutely incredible. Like I said this once to an electrician and he's like, no, you must be talking in milliamps. No, this is actual amps. Where you look at your house circuit in North America, we have 110 volts, 120 volts, depending on what you want to talk about. And those circuits are 15 amps, right? So when you look at 750 amps, that's a massive, massive number.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Max 5, 6, 8, those different models. I don't know what power people are pushing through those. It might be capable of the 750 amp range, you know.
I think I have a Max 5 in my DBXLE. It's 250 continuous, and I think it's like 600 or 700 peak.
Okay, yeah. I guess the other case, it's like our C ratings too, right? Our C ratings, we know on battery packs are never accurate. I have not come across one. I don't know how ratings on electronic speed controls are. In fact, Castle Creations, they don't even give their ESCs ratings.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a big reason as to why. You give someone a rating and they think, you know, it's bulletproof, like the number 5, your Max 5 at 700 amps. Like I'd like to see that on data log and compare that up against the temperatures that thing hits and, you know, actually see what it's capable of to understand the spec on it.
Right.
Because that's a serious number of amps pulled through a unit. Yeah. No doubt that it can't do it, but like to see the data to see exactly what kind of performance in terms of heat you get out of that thing at that current.
Right. As you said with the batteries too, and their C ratings, I'm sure it's part of marketing as well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the XLX2, they did give it a rating on the boat version of it. And on the boat version, it was something like 150 or 200 amps continuous. But guys are laughing at it, saying, well, I've already been 300 amps continuous with it,
Right.
you know, water cooled. And yeah, they tend to underrate a lot of their product, at least from my point of view. I also had on the channel, probably haven't seen the video, but I take a 100 amp speed control and I'm running it at 105 amps continuous for the full duration of a battery pack. And there again, it handles it. No problem.
Dean's connector can handle David, frequently used in nuclear power plants. The most powerful connector in RC, fellas.
Right next to Traxxas. Right next to Traxxas.
Oh my goodness. All right, Dirty Mac said, which ESC connector would you recommend for a Max 5?
Yeah, Max 5, based on the specs that we were talking about, are 200 amps plus continuous. I think 250 was mentioned.
Yeah, at 250.
Yeah, that's a big number, guys. Like 250 amps. I've had vehicles that pull that, boats specifically that pull 200 amps continuous, and I'm telling you, it's a massive load on it. And the connector size at that current, keeping in mind, yeah, there's the ESC. It's got 250 on the top right there. I see the connector that I'd want to see on that ESC at that rating, that ESC should have like 8 gauge wire on it, having the 250, and it probably doesn't, I would guess. I don't know if you have.
No, it does. It does.
It's got 8 gauge on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd want to see 8 gauge on there, and the connector size, you probably could get away with a 7 millimeter size connector. If you really want to be safe and have low temperatures on that side, low resistance, you can go with an 8 millimeter connector. You know, and what is it, the QS8 or something?
QS8,
QS8, yeah. So that's going to be like the one that's bulletproof for the 200 to 250 amp mark. I have in all my units a 7mm connector. It's like an AS150 or something they call it. And it's good for about 150 amps. And I've been over 500 peak amps through it with no temperature difference. But again, that's peak, not continuous.
Absolutely. Just bashing it. Hashtag who's Deans. Man, we had too much fun around here, guys. The going joke is the Deans connector is the most powerful connector in RC. Hey, that's the going joke around here.
Well, hey, if it operates a nuclear power plant, that's a tough one to argue. Like
I think last stream we said it could change the rotation of the Earth too if we used a couple adapters.
Yeah, with the nuclear plant or without?
Yes, sir. With it.
Okay, well, sure. Well, that's a lot of power. Yeah.
What happened?
What do you guys use for connectors?
EC5s.
EC5, okay.
Yeah, I use EC5.
XC90s, EC5s, IC5, XC60s.
Nice.
I'm running QS8s on my Max 5 though.
Okay, QS8s on the Max 5. Yeah, that makes sense. 250 amps.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, I mean, some of my cars I still run Deans, but that's
up to like 3S. Yeah,
I think 3S. Yeah, that's it. That's about it.
I know Team Associated likes to put Deans on 6S.
Yeah, Team Associates like to put Deans together.
Zach, what's going on?
Yeah, we got a comment in the channel there that's saying IC5, EC5, XT90, Deans. Another question I saw there from Dirty Max, would XT90 be fine too? That's what I have on hand. And I can't remember if this is the same comment from the Max 5.
Yes.
Okay. So if that is, like, what you can do, guys, you can run a really small connector on a massive ESC. What it comes down to is how much power do you plan to pull in your radio control vehicle? If you're only pulling like 30 amps in your radio control vehicle, you can use an XT30, right, with your Max 5. But if you're going to be pulling a significant amount of power because you got this in a limitless or something, then you're going to want to, beef up to a bigger connector. I would say the XT90 is good for maybe 60 miles an hour, but if you're going to be pushing 100 miles an hour, I would start to consider something bigger.
Hey, stick to it. Say something. Let me know that you aren't blocked. My guy just bashing it. He out there taking people out by accident.
Just blocking them, baby.
Hey, just blocking them. You know how he do. Hey, let me know if you blocked or not, so I can unblock you. If you are, that was by accident. Nobody trying to block you. Yeah, I forgot that is his name. Just blocking.
All right, so RC, explain what are your favorite batteries to run in your limitless?
Oh, it's because I'm buying so many of these battery packs just to test. I often end up with all of them, right? So the ones that I typically bring out to run would be the CNHLs. I bring out the SMCs just because that's the top performer, and unfortunately I haven't had a good run with the SMCs, not because of the SMCs, but because of driver not driving well. But aside from that, those are the ones that you're going to get very good performance from. CNHL is a really good bang for your buck when you look at the actual data and the price that you pay and the availability. You buy them on Amazon. I know an Amazon question came up very early on. So those are available on Amazon, at least from a Canadian point of view.
Yep, here too.
Yeah, okay, excellent. Yeah, where the SMCs are a little more limited to purchasing within the US and on their site, as we talked about. there's other batteries that guys are liking. There's also ones that have surprised me. When I posted a video on a specific brand, there's a lot of comments that were saying there's no way, you know, that performed as poorly as that particular battery did. So guys are buying all kinds of batteries, having good luck with them. You know, as long as it works for you, great. If you're looking for performance, the ones I mentioned, those are the ticket.
Okay, SMC. Well, yeah, CNHL.
Yeah, I like CNHL too.
I like CNHL.
Definitely. They always run sales too, so you can usually get them at a good price.
Pilot Ryan Media, welcome to the live. How you doing?
Pilot Ryan.
Pilot Ryan.
How's it going?
Quad Mafia, what's going on?
Got a couple of Ryans in the house. Good to see.
Yes, sir. Cardboard. Zach said anyone want to get rid of their H10 optic.
Yeah, what size batteries are you guys running?
Everything from 2 to 6S.
2 to 6. In what capacities?
Normally around 100C, and the milliamp hour is probably around 5600 to 7200, maybe somewhere in there.
Yep.
Well, yeah, my highest capacity is my Gen 8 battery is what is it? 10,000 milliamp, 150C.
Okay.
Yeah, I
That's
run
my highest.
anywhere from, like, if I'm running my Groms, I'll run like a 2200, and then I'm running like in my Outcast and my DBXLE a 9000.
9000. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, these are the packs that I want to, you know, eventually test as well. I'm doing a lot of 5000 size packs on the channel, testing those for performance and seeing exactly how they perform with all the data output that I get. I've been asked a lot of questions on higher capacity, because the higher capacity, you have a lot more potential for more power output. And when it comes to speed runs, those higher capacity batteries are the ticket to get you even more discharge current at the end of the day. So good to go fast.
Right. And then 5000 is like a good middle ground too for power versus weight of the battery and everything else.
Yeah, 5000s. Yeah. And that's what I prefer to actually use a 5000, just because they're convenient too. Pilot Ryan there, he said 5000. Others say 5200. It's pretty much the 5000 mark. I think it's a really good mix.
I hear there's not much of a difference in runtime from like a 6000 to a 5000 either.
Yeah, because especially if you follow the rule that we should all be following, right? Which is don't discharge more than that 80% mark. So you ruin the battery on the low.
Right.
So you look at 80% of the difference between the 6 and the 5, and that's only 800 milliamp hour, the actual true difference there. Yeah, and if you're flying a jet, that goes fast, 800 milliamp hour in a jet that's pulling over 100 amps under full throttle. And the way I fly jets, it's wide open or go home type thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, high speed passes all day long, and a lot of guys at the field, they like to go slow and fly scale and whatnot. Nope, not me. See me buzzing the ground at 5 feet off the deck at as fast as the plane will go.
Wow.
Yeah. Beatlock said, "You just bashing it. This is for you." He said, "You miss getting taken in the NFL draft. Just bashing it because you're a great blocker." Just bashing it. Stay blocking somebody by accident. Oh my goodness. Zach, what's going on? How you doing, my guy?
Technique, what's good?
Yeah, Technique in the house. He in here with the Quad Mafia channel, as well as he doubled back and came in with his regular channel. What's going on, everybody? Definitely don't forget to subscribe to RC Explained. Link is in the description, but I will drop it in the chat as well as check out his website. I'm about to drop both of those in the chat right now, guys.
I just dropped a link to a second channel as well.
I appreciate that. Why?
Appreciate it. Yeah, does anyone run boats? Boats seem to be the one thing that not a lot of people are running these days. But
I got one boat.
You got one boat? Okay, let's hear
Yes,
about
I do. It's the Sonic Wake V2.
Sonic Wake V2. You're running that on 6S.
Yep, 6S. It's still stock, so I think it's 120 amp ESC.
Okay.
So like you can't really run the 6S all crazy because you'll end up melting the solder off the connectors.
Okay.
But as long as you're just hitting it, I got a different prop on there. I think that's like a 4519 prop, and then I went with some purple silicone wires, cooling lines.
Nice.
But yeah, I've only had this thing out probably 5-6 times, but it's definitely a blast. I like it.
Excellent. Yeah. Boats are a lot of fun too. And out of all the different radio controlled models, they're one that pull a lot of power.
Yep.
Or the amount of speed that you get out of them. You know, they go 50 miles an hour, but you can pull a lot of power to be able to do that.
Yeah, I want to get a real boat one day. I got a little E-Sheen. I got 2 little boats. Well, 3 actually. I got 2 E-Sheen boats and I got a Pro Boat Jet Jam.
Okay.
So I really don't have a real boat yet. But
I caught that one on sale last year. I think it's like a $400 boat, but I got it for like $310.
yeah, this is the best I got right here. A little brushless 3S brushless boat. E-Sheen.
Oh, that thing moves though, don't it?
Yeah. It go about 20 something miles an hour. 20.
Oh, okay.
I want to say 25, 27, something like that. It's water cooled. It's pretty cool little boat.
Nice.
Yeah, I got 60 out of my Sonic Wake, but it's also a 36-inch boat. So
60 miles.
Rooster got that same boat you got. He trying to sell it for
it
$250.
moves, man. That's thing
great.
moves.
Yeah, Rooster trying to sell one for $250. He said he only drove it a couple of times.
That's a good price. One thing with the boats is there's a little bit more maintenance involved. Not necessarily more. You just have to. You're supposed to end up greasing that prop shaft like every run.
Absolutely, you gotta grease that prop shaft or it will freeze up.
You will burn it up. Yep.
Yeah, and we want to go fast, so we want to keep it lubricated, so we get every last
Right.
drop of miles per hour, right? That's the way I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those both are good units. That little guy that you were talking about, what is it, Jet Jam?
Yeah, this little guy right here.
Yeah, I've seen one of those run. They're really cool.
Little pool boat.
Yep.
I got it really for my grandson to mess around with.
Absolutely.
He's a heavily aquatic guy. He loves the pool, so I picked this up to run in the pool, and I also got what is it? Some kind of Ruco amphibious truck that can drive on the water. So he loves that thing too. So I let him drive the truck on the water, and I drive the boat around, and man, we just have a blast.
Right on. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, B-Lock. That's what I like. I like those Miss Geico boats. It's something about them.
Yeah, I like those too.
Yeah.
There's something about them that I just like.
Yeah, those some nice boats. Definitely. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to the 43 people in the house, man. Moderators, y'all know what time it is. 2 hours and 42 minutes in, guys. Don't forget, subscribe to RC Explain. Moderators, drop the links in the chat for everybody out there participating. Just don't drop your own link. Fellas.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I saw a couple of you subscribing to the channel. I hope there's some value that you guys can get out of the channel. And I'm always reading as many comments as I can. So if you have questions, I also answer as many as I can get to.
Oh, yeah. I enjoy watching your channel because every time I go over there, I always learn something, regardless. You know, every video is definitely value in the videos.
Yeah, right on. That's what it's all about. Yeah, comment there. I have a 32-inch Pro boat, Miss Geico.
Oh, yeah, Fred, the Beat Lock, Mr. Beat Lock, Dreadlock,
Miss
Deadlock.
Geico boats are fire. I like those.
Is that's the catamaran, right?
Yeah.
Miss Geico is the catamaran.
Yeah, nice boat.
Yeah, they look nice. Only thing is they don't self-right, so and I don't have a recovery boat yet, so
Yeah, that's the only
I'm
thing.
not swimming. Not my river, bro. No shot.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I like that. What is it called? The jet boat. the Horizon Hobby jet boat they have.
The little
That thing
basher
is
boat.
super nice.
Yeah.
That thing is super nice. I've seen a lot of people driving that thing in like little creeks and jumping it and flipping it and doing all kind of things with it.
Yeah, it's got like an aluminum bottom to it.
Yeah, nice.
Shout out to the 50 in the chat, man. Don't forget to smash the like button. Definitely come hang out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays in the fun zone, fellas.
Yeah, one of the next things I'm trying to do is be able to hit triple numbers for speed on land, surface, water, and air.
Wow.
Nice.
That would be awesome, bro.
Yeah, very close, but not quite there. Maybe this summer it'll cross the line.
Man, I know 100 miles an hour on the water has got to be crazy.
Yeah, it is. I'm very, very close with a boat behind me, but we got to dial her in. It might need new batteries. Otherwise, I have to change, I think, drive shafts and everything just to get the right props on there. And yeah, it's incredible. You know, on the water, high speeds like that does not take much, and you turn a boat into an airplane that flies for 100 feet.
Hey, that's just like them.
Man, it'll
the
suck
RC
them
cars.
batteries down. It'll suck them batteries down too quick.
Yeah. It's same idea with our Speedrun cars. You make a couple passes and you let her be. Let her cool down. Sometimes even running it at very slow speed as you bring it in helps to get water flowing through the system, cooling it off a little bit further. Yeah.
Hey, don't forget, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, we live over here in the fun zone. Wednesday night, you got Just Bashing It up first, and then you have Pilot Ryan. Guys, definitely tune in to those guys. Just Bashing, I couldn't make it the other night, man. My sinuses were killing me. I was in the bed, I was listening to Pilot Ryan and Kelly, and I was just laying there hoping to survive to the next day, guys. I'm telling you. I had to go to the doctor today about my sinuses. They gave me all kind of medication and stuff like that. So hopefully I start clearing up very soon. So yes, sir. Appreciate all the tech info. Ryan and RC explained. Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, glad to be on to share some of it.
Yes, I'm definitely glad I reached out to you, and I'm so glad that you accepted the invitation to come hang out with us, man. Because we love talking with other RC content creators, because I mean everybody brings something different to the table, and what you bring to the table is like one of a kind. Like we don't have that from anybody else. Like I'm just gonna tell you, I'm gonna tip my hat to you and just tell you, hey, we don't get that from anybody else in the hobby. I'm telling you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I can make a difference somewhere. You know, like I'm often told my videos, they're educational and everything, but they're not meant to be entertainment. You know what I mean? You know, if I
they definitely meant for you to learn something.
Right.
You got me like this right now, and I feel like I got air in my head.
hey, listen, like a sponge. I just been over here absorbing. And then I always see me, I absorb as much as I can. Then when I watch the playback, I catch what I didn't catch, you know, like what I missed or what I didn't absorb right away. Like I normally catch it on the playback. See, normally I watch the playback like the next day or so.
Nice. Right on.
Stick to it said, what makes boats fast, gears or props or both?
Good question.
Ooh, too much hydration. I'll be right back.
Alrighty. Yeah. What makes boats fast? So generally in radio controlled boats, we don't use gears. And the primary reason there is it's just added components, added resistance between two paired gears that is not really necessary. The way that we control that is by proper selection of battery packs, proper selection of the KV of the motor that we're using, and then, of course, the proper selection of the propeller. Same thing that I was talking about earlier with the most famous question that I get asked is, I have a radio control boat that I built myself. I put this motor in it. It's 1,000 kV, times 10. It's a ridiculous high number of kV. I'm putting 30 volts to it and it burnt up. How come? And it's just because of all the combinations of everything are not adding up to what makes boats do well. And this is a big thing when it comes to boats, because they perform specifically in a range of RPM. And generally, I recommend to anyone who's building a boat to build a boat that's in the range of a total unloaded RPM of about 20,000 to 35,000 RPM. If you're an experienced builder and you're going for top speed, or if you're doing SAW saw type runs, that's kind of like the top speed runs of boats, then you can get upwards of over that 40,000 RPM, but you really need to know what you're doing. And the reason why we're kind of locked into this sort of RPM is because we need a big enough propeller to get that boat on step, but then we also need a small enough propeller to allow our motors to unload so they don't overload. So what makes them fast is the combination of the power that you have behind your power system, which comes down to your overall power system selection and making sure that you're selecting an appropriate propeller that works with that specific setup. And ultimately, if you do all those things, you're going to get the speed that was designed to run at. I saw another thing there. Did we talk about internal resistance? That came up. Can't remember if we talked specifically about IR. We can go over that again.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Well.
No internal resistance.
Yes.
Yeah, internal resistance is a value that I really love and about our hobby. And it kind of, to me, is a really good balance point between all the C rating labels that we see out there. I said earlier in this live stream that I have not yet measured a battery pack that delivers the C rating that the label states. We talked about 100 C rated battery packs and 120 C rated battery packs. None of the battery packs perform anywhere near that level. The highest that I have came in at somewhere around the 35 C mark, and that was like an SMC pack. Every other battery has performed less than that, all the way down to somewhere around 10 C. And why that's important is because we get into the internal resistance, and the internal resistance is something that we have the ability to measure with our chargers. And if we have a charger that has this capability, we can monitor a battery pack from the time that we buy it new to the time that it's 3 years old. We can compare the performance of it as it relates back to this type of element, the internal resistance. And generally, internal resistances, when they're new, they're going to be at their lowest. And as they age, they're going to increase over time. And as they increase over time, resistance just equates to heat and wasted power. We also get a voltage drop if we have higher internal resistances on a battery pack. That voltage drop is going to really kind of starve us of the power that we probably want there. And if we turn it into heat, like I said, you're just putting it to waste. So because of this, what we can do, monitor that value, and we can also use the calculators that are found on the website, radiocontrolinfo.com. There's free calculator there. I've also made a video that kind of compares internal resistance and matches that up to an actual C rating based off of IR. I also have videos that I do where I talk within my Patreon page. I have another calculator there that does something very similar. And what we can do from this is see a actual C rating versus what the labeled C rating is. Base it all off of IR, something we can do if you have a charger. We talked about chargers in this live stream as well. Most of the ones that we did speak about, the GT Power that I most recently reviewed, that has the capability of measuring IR. The ISDT unit that I bought several weeks ago has it. The Gropner Polaron charger that we talked about has it. A lot of the battery chargers that we're seeing on the market today have that capability. Highly recommend it for those that want to keep up with their battery maintenance, which is really looking at how they age. Sometimes a battery, this comes from Pilot Ryan Media, sometimes a battery will be balanced well, but have high IR and give us short run times. It might be your batteries, not your equipment. That might be answering someone's question.
Pilot Ryan, what you doing? Let me see.
I know sometimes for me, like I'll check my IR like as I'm charging, and it'll be a little bit higher. But when I come back in after discharging it and then letting it start its charge cycle, it'll be lower. I
Yes.
think that's just from using it, or I'm not sure what that's from, but
Well, you're right. So this is we have standards set up on the channel where if you are looking at internal resistance, you will want to make sure that you're looking at internal resistance consistently. So that means if you charge it, I generally have a controlled room where I do all of my IR for the channel, my measurements there. And I have that room at a set temperature. I don't remember what the temperature it is. I have to literally look it up every single time I go and do it. And you figure I do it once a month. I should probably know because I've done it now over a year. So I've had to look at it like 13 times. But I control the temperature is even important because a higher temperature, ambient temperature within a room is going to change your internal resistance that you measure. And then we charge at a 1.5 C rate, which is a good balance. Of charging high enough so we get a big differential, a decent enough differential there in what we're trying to measure. And then, like you said, we want to take this measurement within about a minute of the charger charging our battery pack. And the reason why is because if we go and take a measurement, even my charger, my Gropner Polaron, it'll give me readouts every 5 minutes. And every 5 minutes, that's dropping. It's because the chemistry of the battery pack, it's being used. You're pushing electrons into the battery and it's, building that. And as it does that, it's chemically becoming better. When also the battery heats up, like their ambient temperature, when we actually use it, the battery pack heats up and the internal resistance drops further. So this relationship really skews the idea on us of IR, but if we make sure we're taking the measurements at the same time every time, we're going to have that consistency to be able to compare.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then I know
Sergeant J in the house. What's going on?
Sergeant J, what's going on, bro?
What's good, fam? Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Loud and clear.
Yo, great information happening here tonight. Appreciate
Yes,
you
sir.
for coming through.
Right on.
RC explaining the building. I've actually watched several of your videos, I believe, and I gained some insight on a lot of different things. So it's cool.
Excellent. Yeah. About what?
IR stuff, C ratings, all the kind of stuff you were already explaining here.
Right on. Yeah. Appreciate the kind words, guys.
Yes, sir. We definitely appreciate you coming in and joining us tonight. 2 hours and 56 minutes, guys. I don't know how much longer you guys want to stay on tonight. Normally we ended at the 3 hour mark, but normally Louie run the marathon on Thursday, so I don't know what to tell y'all.
I can't do the marathon tonight. I got a big meeting in the morning. I can't do the marathon tonight.
Yeah. Anybody got any more questions? Pilot Ryan, I sent you the link if you want to come up here. You got anything you want to say? Linden, what you got going on over there?
I just brung couple of things out that RC Explained was talking about, like batteries, all different the chargers he was talking about, all different batteries, the C ratings, a milliamp, like this one right here, it's the 5,000 milliamp 70C, what he was talking about. I got the different motors he was talking about, explaining the kV and the size. Yeah, so I just brung out a couple of things that he was talking about. But I do got a question for you, RC Explain, about the batteries. So what gives your RC cars the more power? Is it the C rating or the milliamps?
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to battery packs, the equation to get the continuous discharge current, this is the ultimately the power that we get out of the battery pack as it relates to that current, is going to be related to both your C rating and the capacity. So you take capacity measured in amp hour, we multiply it by the C rating, and that's the value. So if you take both of those values and you increase it, you're going to get a battery that can dissipate more power. You're also, what's really nice about it is as we get a higher continuous current, a discharge current there, you're going to have higher amounts of voltage that's going to be maintained by that battery pack.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And if we're not having a low or a high voltage drop, we're going to get maximum output. So there's a couple things going on. And if you increase capacity and you increase C rating, that's where you get the highest performance. That's why guys in top speedrun cars are going with 10,000 milliamp hour battery packs these days, right? Because you're getting it with a high C rating. Just keep in mind, you know, if there's one thing to take away on the channel, it is C rating that is found on a label cannot be taken for the value that it is. We've learned this through data, not my opinion, that they don't quite add up, right?
Okay.
And yeah, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But you know, the general idea, the general theory behind it is C rating multiplied by that capacity gives you your output.
Yep. And then for you guys at Bash, your burst rating is a lot of where you do your bashing stuff at, being able to get that punch out of it.
Yes.
I think it just makes a lot of people feel better too when they see the 120C versus the 30-40C, you know.
Yeah. That I ain't gonna lie, that's me.
I fell victim to that for sure.
I fell victim to that. Like when I see that higher C rating, I'm like, I would rather use that higher C rating battery over the lower C rating battery.
There have been times though where I'll catch myself. I'm like, wow, this battery performed a lot better than this higher C, higher mod battery.
Yeah,
so,
but you know what, guys?
I had
Linden. Go ahead, Louie.
I had some times I put a higher C rating and it actually give more power than like when I was showing the video with the Titan.
Yeah.
I know I upgraded everything else with the battery, but when it wasn't just everything else I upgraded with the battery, it actually it gave more power to the car with that higher C rate, and then you know the 120, then the 50.
And that's what it's supposed to do.
It was a big jump, but it honestly, you know, and then the one that I had with the 50, that was a Power Hobby battery, and then the 120 was a Z battery. So comparing to the batteries, you know, that Power Hobby is way more better than the Z battery, but that Z battery gave a lot more power with that 120 than, and both of the milliamps was the same. But the 120 Z battery, the 120C, that Z battery gave way more power than the Power Hobby 50C battery. So it do kind of play a factor with the more C inside of it, from what I see.
And it should. Like Louie, what you've established there is what realistically it should do. Like that's the way it should perform, you know, but unfortunately some battery manufacturers, they put a bigger number and then people fall victim and wide open. And Linden both talked about this. I can't blame anybody for picking the 120C over a 100. Like it's kind of nonsense to me that this is happening in the industry. It kind of, you know, puts a little bit of a sore spot on my heart for those that go and spend their hard-earned cash for numbers that don't actually follow data. You know, it's unfortunate that this is happening in our industry. I think in the lithium ion industry, it's a lot more controlled, and it's a lot more controlled in other areas of the industry too. When you look at lithium ion for computers and all these other types of things. But yeah, I can't blame anyone for picking a 120C as long as we know that, hey, you know, maybe check with somebody who's run those battery packs. Do they perform good? And can they back it up with data if they have it? Data doesn't lie, right?
Right.
But bad data is not good data. So
I'm not gonna go with a 120 over 80 or 90. You know, if I'm comparing it, I'm not gonna go with a 120 because, you know, instead of getting an 80 or 90. To me, I will picture that they're gonna perform almost close.
Right.
You know, but you know, when I'm going from a 50 or 60C to a 120C, I would definitely choose the 120 over, you know, the lower numbers.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. From my perspective, I just look at the test data results. You know, if you've been following along on the channel, we do test every month. I got a new battery pack that's on its way. It's a little late. Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing Spectrum. It's a G2 that's coming down the pipeline on the channel, and we're going to see what kind of performance that outputs. But I take my list of data and then I look at what I want. And if it's performance, I'm picking from the top of the list, and if it's more of a budget battery, I'm picking from the middle of the list that sells at a good price. Like I've stopped actually looking at the C rating that they have on there. And I'm selecting purely based off of the data if that's what I'm looking for, like performance-wise.
Okay.
We got a question here that popped up. Can I read it?
Yes, sir.
Another about battery storage. Once a battery is in storage, do you have to keep charging every now and then to keep it at storage charge? So the answer there is, what I would do is I would check that battery. So this is common for myself when I am entering the season here in Canada. It's a long winter season, at least it feels like that, from December all the way to, the beginning of April, and then we're free again. We can go outside. But during that time, I'm going to check up on the batteries. I don't expect them to lose their charge. If I leave them at 3.85 volts, I expect to see them somewhere around that 3.85 volts. If I see a battery pack that shows as 3.7 something, I'm a little concerned of the health of that battery, because they really shouldn't lose that much capacity over time. And then that capacity is represented as a voltage when I go and measure it again. And where we use these tools, the battery checkers, to do exactly that and check the voltage. So that's what I would say. Check it just to make sure it's okay. But the expectation is that you shouldn't need to charge it. But I would if it needs it.
All right, I got one. So one of my batteries, it went dead, like completely dead. And when I tried to charge it, it won't charge. It's acting as if it's a Ford's battery, and it's acting as if I got like something less than a Ford's battery trying to charge it. How can I get that battery with enough power to start charging it again?
Yeah. Do you know if it's just a cell within the pack that is giving you the issue?
No, I didn't check if it's any of the cell. I just tried to plug it in and it won't. I tried on like 4 chargers and it keeps saying like low voltage or something like that.
Yeah.
But I had another battery that did that, and it was a smaller battery. So I put it on a what's the other, it's not the LiPo battery. I forgot the name of the other one. I put it on. Yeah, I put it on that for like maybe like 30 seconds. And it gave it enough power to where I could put it on a LiPo charge, and it charged perfect. It runs, there's no problem with it. But the 4S battery don't give you an option to do that. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of power inside of it so I could charge it. Because it seemed like the power went dead from my lights, because I had my lights on it. And I had it on for so long with my lights that it killed the battery. And for your lights to kill the battery, that means your battery is low, like at its maximum lowest. So now I can't get it to charge up. What do I do to get it to charge?
Yeah, you have the right idea there, Louie. This is a common thing that if you've been in the industry, in the hobby for long enough, you're going to encounter this, where your battery pack, more than likely, it's one cell that drops out, and that cell just is reading low. Now, it could read 0 volts, or it could read a value that's higher than 0, but less than about 3 volts. And in this type of circumstance, I would do exactly what you've done. The trick to it is making sure that you're able to select within your charger either I think I did a review on this, and there's a repair mode on some chargers that'll help with this. And there's also different modes on chargers within the nickel metal hydride setting that'll allow it. My Gropner Polaron charger that I use in everything that I do and on the channel as well, this has an auto setting. So the auto is in terms of the cell count. So I can charge one of these battery packs, a lithium polymer battery pack, in the nickel metal hydride auto mode, and it will start to ramp back up the battery voltage within that particular cell. Now, there's one thing that I will always say about this. This is a dangerous function that we're performing. The battery cell is at a dangerous level, and we don't know what that cell can do. So I would charge that battery pack in a safe spot. If something bad were to happen with that cell, like smoke and fire, that you're okay with that, with where it is. Maybe it's in a LiPo fire safe bag in your garage in a safe place around concrete or whatever you do. And I would monitor it the entire duration, every second. I wouldn't leave that thing for any period of time. And in some cases, the auto mode cuts out on me, and all I do is restart it again, and it'll able to continue. If you don't have that auto mode, another thing that you can do is you can see what actual total voltage that your pack has. And if you have a 3-cell and your pack is measuring at 7 volts or so, this is a 3-cell LiPo, it's measuring at 7 volts, it should come out closer to 11 something volts. If this is the case, I would use a similar nickel metal hydride voltage that allows that to be charged. In that rate, you're looking at like a 6-cell nickel metal hydride battery pack. And then once you get it up to 8 volts, then you might need to use the 7-cell nickel metal hydride setting. So you're just trying to find the cell count that matches it to try and trick your LiPo into charging it. Remember, your charger's trying to keep you safe by not allowing something silly like this to be done. And this is why I'm recommending to monitor it and to pay close attention, because we're operating in an unsafe environment, you know. But we can make it safe with all these things that we're doing.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Good job. Great work you're doing. People need to know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. On the same topic, is there something that you would see with a battery checker or just putting it on the charger before you ever attempt to trick one into working again that would say, hey, this one's not worth bothering? In my mind, as I'm listening to this talk, I'm like, if it's only one cell that's just flat, and then you do get it going again on the charger, even after you've done the trick to get the LiPo method to register, like definitely, like you say, monitor, but look at the cells. If that power you think is going into the dead cell, if that cell is still dead and it's going into, it can go into the other two, correct?
It will be, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to, I mean, if it starts creeping up over 4.2 and nothing's happening to the one cell that put this thing suspect in the first place, then like cut your losses, right?
There's a couple things that you can do there. And if you know that the other cells are at 4.20 volts, what I would do is I would use one of those voltage checkers that also have a balancer, and I would use that in discharge mode. And if it discharges, you have to look at the specs, and we're getting a little bit deep into the, the theory and everything. If it discharges at a 0.1 amp rate, then I would charge a nickel metal hydride mode at a 0.1 amp rate.
Oh yeah.
And then you're never going to exceed the voltage that it's at in theory, right?
And that's better. And that's just like, if you don't know, that's probably a good default, right? Like just 0.1, just trickle it in.
Yeah, we didn't talk about charge rates, but you will want to be low. Like, I don't think I've ever gone above 0.4 when I'm doing this, 0.4 amps, 400 milliamps. And it's always good to be low. It does not take a lot of time to take the voltage of a battery from 0 and bump it over 3. It does not take much.
Yeah,
and
that's
then you
like,
can get
I
back
wouldn't even say 5 minutes.
Yeah, then you can get back on the LiPo. Is there, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a couple questions, man.
Go for it.
In that same, what's up, Ty? You know I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna try.
My bad. That's why I invited you, Pilot Ryan. I know you had something to say. I said, hey, let's get him on here.
I deal with a lot of this. I dealt with a lot of this at the shop, and I've just learned like a caveman does. I definitely don't have the head for it. You do. In that same scenario, do you expect to see the IR per cell to be like, if the cell is dead, what do you expect to see there? Is it gonna just flatten, or it's way high?
Yeah, so when it comes to the internal resistance of that cell that is not above 3.00 volts, I would expect that particular cell, if you're reading IR, to show values that are very high. And I wouldn't call it quits when I see these values. I would try and revive that cell. And if you're able and successful to get it to be revived, then I would take the charge, the overall battery, and balance it completely. I would charge it at the I would use the lithium polymer battery charge mode on your charger to charge it at the rate that it can discharge, so the good cells can be maintained and not go to a high voltage. And then the charge is going to ramp that low cell up to the others. If everything is still successful, then you're going to have all the cells back in balance, and then you can just fully charge it up at a higher rate. Then I would take that internal resistance measurement and compare where it is at versus the others.
And it could level off, or it may still be just bad news. Like sometimes is it possible to trick a battery into, okay, we've tricked it into a good situation, but it's really kind of, we had to get it there and it's going to take the same thing every time, and it's better to just let it go.
Yeah, I've had multiple situations here with what's happened as a result of trying to revive it. And I've revived packs for other people too, you know, just at the local flying clubs and whatnot. And I've had a situation where I've charged it up to that balance value. I let the pack sit there and the voltage just dropped off back under 3, and I couldn't save it. So it had like an internal constant discharge within that cell, and that cell was unrevivable. I've also had it's a very similar situation, but instead of it discharging itself over time, and I'm talking it lost a lot over a short period of time, the other situation was that the cell had a massive internal resistance once we got it back to the voltage that you store them at, 3.80 to 3.85. It had a massive internal resistance difference. So I'm talking if we had numbers of a 6L being like 3s and 5s, in anywhere between there, I had a number of like 30 or 40 on the dead cell. So like here, this is where you got to make the decision, right? 30 and 40 versus 3s and 5s. That's not going to work well.
I tend to feel like I may, you know, sometimes if a pack seems to be uniform across the cells, it's like, okay, even if it's up there a little bit, it still speaks a little bit in my mind to some kind of health, and it's okay. It's balanced.
Right.
And so in my mind, I kind of think of double digits as bad news, but especially in the 20s, like I can maybe live with 10 to 13, but I start to get a little bit nervous over that, especially if one is acting a fool and the rest of them are okay.
Right. Yeah. What do you typically fly? I know you fly a lot of jets. What are you looking for IR values on your jets?
Honestly, I just check it every now and then, and only if I've experienced like an anomaly. It's almost more other folks that I've dealt with that run into the trouble. And I think this will make sense. Like the low voltage cutoff on airplanes, they say is 3.7. And so if you fly to the point where your motor's pulsing and you're forced to land, you're not far from storage charge. Right? But on the vehicles, I've never killed more batteries in my life until I started bashing.
Okay.
So I feel like the surface side of things, even though they may state an LVC, I'm not sure how right on that is, because it seems like we're able to kill our batteries if we're not cognizant of it more often on surface than an airplane, at least in my experience, because if I fly till the motor quits, I already know, you know, but a truck will run them till they stop. Right. And if you don't know better, you'll go inside, drink some Kool-Aid, come back out and run it some more, because after that sag, it'll come back a little. And that's like the worst thing you can do to them, I've heard.
Yeah. And I agree with you. That's where I run into concerns around it. And that's where I'm hitting low voltage cutoffs, is when I run my radio controlled cars just fooling around in the yard, you know, or with friends. But when it comes to jets, I don't even think I need a low voltage cutoff. My timer goes off. It makes all kinds of noises. My radio's buzzing on me. I know I got to land. You know, I know I have a couple go arounds if I need them.
We're far away from the egg timer days now, right? Like
true.
We get so many warnings now. I've become accustomed to ignoring them sometimes, because, you know, you'll have it on I still set a timer, you know, on the radio, but it's also going to feed telemetry at me as well, depending on the equipment. I use Spectrum.
Same.
But I said 5,000 earlier because I think it's a popular pack. Even on the airplane side, once you get into 6S, 5,000 seems to be a really good battery. You don't suffer a weight penalty and all that.
Yeah.
Just because a plane can take a 7,000, like you did the breakdown earlier, that it's not 2,000 more milliamps worth of flight time.
Right.
That's right. It's weird. Like it exponentially shrinks. You said on a 6,000, it's what, 800 more milliamps?
Well, that's just that's a low load 800. We didn't get to that extra step. You know, there's so much detail to this. If I explain every little granule, it will be here all night, right? But
right.
That's 800 of usable.
It really would be a marathon then.
That's 800 usable milliamp hour if the capacity is true at a 1C discharge rate. But our airplanes are not 1C discharge rate. They're much higher, you know, so that becomes even smaller, the actual usable.
Right. And the weight penalty, because it really matters on the in the air. So diminishing returns. That's why I think so many people, and I've flown 7,000s and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like the 5006S in most everything that's big enough to take it.
Okay, right, yeah.
But in the 4S planes, like 3,200, 4,000 is pretty good. And earlier, you guys were talking about the C rating, and like a 2250C does not have as much punch as, like you were saying, when you've got more capacity, there's actually more there. So a 2250C is not going to deliver the punch like a 4050C. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Absolutely
neat. And yeah, I know C ratings are BS too, right? But as far as the consumer marketing of it goes, I personally, when I was selling stuff at the shop, people would ask about it all the time. And I was like, look, 30 to 50, you're not going to see a difference. You hardly are going to be able to tell the difference, 30 to 50. But if you go 30 to 100, 50 to 100, you're going to notice the punch. And yeah, the bigger the battery, the more it can deliver to you.
Absolutely. Like I have a sheet in front of me here, and I look at some of these. I have it. This is the labeled C rating, 100. The actual, around 14. Labeled C rating of 70. Actual, 30. Labeled C rating of 60. Actual, 19. A label of 40. Actual, 25.
Tell the guys the math on if the C rating were true, on a 5,000 milliamp 6S 100C, if what it said on the label was actually right on, that would mean that battery's got to discharge in like 90 seconds or something ridiculous. If what they said was true.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think he touched on that earlier too.
Okay, my bad. I'm late.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, right?
When it comes to batteries, it's a tough thing, you know, and that's why I started doing the battery tests here on the RC Explained channel, just to kind of show what's actually happening with batteries and C ratings. And sometimes I get a little bit of flack for it with the battery packs when I'm showing that a battery that's super popular and everyone uses it and the data doesn't come out good. I actually had so many people say, no, there's no way that's right. You got bad battery packs. You're not doing something right. Go buy another 2. So I went and spent the money and bought another 2 packs. I tested it and I got the same results. And now I said, now I got 6 of these batteries and all of them are doing the same thing.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And the brand of it, I guess I'm okay to say it. All the battery packs I've essentially bought myself out of pocket. You know, I do it thanks to the subscribers as well as the patrons on the channel. And it was the Z battery pack that seems to be very popular, but those have been the worst performing that I have done yet. And I got a little bit of heat from that because, and the data is the data. It's not my opinion.
Hey, people like their bargain, man. Don't mess with their bargain.
People like a bargain.
Oops.
I'll say when I first started, I bought Z's, and after a while, all of them dropped to sell. So I quit buying them. And I since then, I haven't bought another one, so I don't know anymore. That was probably like 2-3 years ago now, but I just don't see the sense in spending $60, $70, $80 for my batteries to drop a cell in 2 months, you know.
I used to have that with Gen Ace.
Yep, Gen Ace too. Everyone talks real good about them, but I've had them puff up on me as well.
I'm trying to get
Gen
Ace. I'm trying to get a hold of Gen Ace. It's not easy.
Nah, Gen Ace. I got the these are the smart ones.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the newer ones. Yeah.
Yeah, these are the newer ones. They got the little indicator on here right here.
Okay, yeah, you can plug it in. Yep. I got the 6800 Basher series. It's a 4S and it's puffed. It's definitely puffed.
Okay. Yeah.
I like the battery, but for $100, it puffed in probably the first 3 or 4 uses. So I was like, all right, I see how this is gonna go, you know.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that they do that. One of the things that I'm not able to test is if it puffs, because I'd have to go through so many different cycles and load them at a realistic amount, and it takes time to do that, right?
Right.
And I got so many battery packs in the place right now. I don't know what to do with them. I think I have to find a way to recycle them so I can buy the next bunch to be tested.
Meat.
Oh, that's a good question. I got a good question for you. What do you do when it comes time to dispose of a LiPo?
Yeah. So a lot of guys do this, and I think it's a really good method. What I do is I use my charger to discharge the pack down to the bottom of what it will do. And in this process, I'm the kind of guy who I care about safety. I'm going to watch it through the entire process, especially once it starts getting into the low voltage range. You know, we're talking about 3.4 volts per cell and lower. And that's where I'm watching it. You're going to see the internal resistance jump up as it gets into this low area on the pack. And then once it gets to about that 3 volt mark, then I actually just turn it into like a nickel metal hydride setting, and I just use the discharge function there. And now I'm 100% focused on watching what it does, because now you're in the critical stage. You got internal resistance that's shooting up. Resistance means heat when you're pulling a current through it. So you're going to want to dial the current down a bit. And then I monitor it and get it down to essentially 0. From there, what I'm doing is you got 2 options. You can go and buy like a resistor, and you can throw a resistor on the leads of the battery pack after you cut the connector off, and that'll help discharge it. At the same time, what I'd recommend is throwing it into a bucket of salt water. Yep. And you want to keep it in a ventilated area in a safe spot. So if something happened, that it's not going to do any damage to you or the things around it, right? It's the lower you get it in terms of voltage, the less potential energy that the battery has, which means the less dangerous it becomes. And then once you use that resistor, you have it in a saltwater bath in a bucket with a steel bucket, then you get it to a certain point where it literally hits 0.00 volts. And from there, what I do is I take it right away. I solder the 2 leads together, and it's been like this at 0 volts for 2 days. I'll leave it in the bucket for a couple days just to make sure, you know. And if you take it after 2 days and you sit it on the table and you come back to it a day later, it's going to build an extremely small amount of charge. And when you take those 2 leads and touch them together, you might see a spark. So be aware of that. So I take those 2 leads, I solder them together, and now you have a dead short on a dead battery pack that's going to stay dead. And then I'll take it to my local recycler.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I know
got
a
a
lot
question about that too.
Yeah.
So on one of my chargers, I think it's the ISDT.
Okay.
On one of my, it has a setting on there that says destroy.
Yeah,
Like it says I can
that
destroy
too.
the LiPo. What does that mean?
Oh my goodness, I don't want to know. Yeah, I haven't seen this. Yeah, I can't.
Destroy.
Yeah, I got that same setting on mine too as well.
You got that same time?
Yeah.
Hey, try it out,
I
Linden.
used it. I don't want to know, but I'm just looking for some information about that.
A viral video waiting to happen, bro.
No, I'm not doing it. Nah, I'm not gonna be the first.
I can't tell you. It doesn't sound good though, Linden.
No. Liability somewhere.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
because I was like, destroy. I was like, I'm trying to feel like, what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I said, yeah, that's a feature I will never try to touch or
Yeah,
Or
once my
Delaware, I
battery
think.
starts swelling up or doing any kind of weird stuff, I just cut the leads off and put it in a little bowl with salt water
Yeah.
and call it a day.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. Me, I know I'm probably not supposed to do this, but I'll just take like a screw or something and just send it through the battery pack. That way, for sure, it's done. It'll burn up. Yes, it will burn up, but I know for sure it ain't gonna flame up again on me.
Oh
And
yeah.
Wild Bill just put it in the chat. He said, I used that function on my ISDT. He said it dropped a damaged battery to 0.
Nah, man. Bill hadn't done the update. When you push that destroy button, what it says is to destroy the rest of the way, throw it in a WL Toys product.
You got
The
some
Dean's
experience,
connector. With a Dean's
Yeah.
connector.
Yeah. Full throttle Johnny and put X-Max paddle tires on an 18 scale to finish it all. Jeez, Louise.
Hey, Pilot Ryan, you were talking about the battery sizes that you use in airplanes and jets and that sort of thing. I'm a little bit off your 5,000 mark. I actually use 4,000 milliamp hour, but I guess the difference is all my planes are extremely heavy. Like I'm flying right now. I had a Hawk from FMS. I just actually sold that. I have hundreds and hundreds of flights on that thing.
The BAE.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
gorgeous. That 80 millimeter job
Yeah.
right there.
So
the best
good.
wheelies ever with a 4,000.
It's so easy to be able to do it with that.
Yeah.
The trouble is all my planes run super heavy, and that's because I can't leave them. Like it comes with a 6S system, so that was put on the bench, and 8S system dropped in. I have a Freewing L39, also uses 4,000 milliamp hour as my capacity, but I use 10S, and it's capable of 12S. I might do 12S this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's zipping.
Man.
That's moving. That's zipping. Those are good planes.
Great planes.
Yeah. You know, I like for me, I like the 3,200 and 4,000s and kind of like the 70 millimeter stuff.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the smaller ones. And then I come from warbirds before jets.
Okay.
And they tend to want, I feel like they're very short coupled in the front.
Yes.
And so they tend to, you're going to need nose weight if it's not a big enough battery.
Right.
And so for me, the 5006S took the place of the old 2200 3S that used to be in everything, you know?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So, and I'll just slide it back. And I like a little bit nose heavy anyway.
Yeah, most do.
When in doubt anyway. And I did reviews for so long. So every time I was filming one of these things, and it was generally like one of my first flights. And so later on, I'll kind of slide it back a little bit and unload the tail some. But you know how it is with a plane, you want it to follow its nose. You don't want it to sink like a brick, but you want it to follow its nose, not drop its tail. Otherwise, you're going to be very busy on landing. And unless you're experienced, you're going to wreck it. So nose heavy flies poorly, tail heavy flies once is kind of the rule of thumb.
It's the same.
So, yeah. So I like the 5,000s. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to use them, but I'm just fighting the weight battle because I want a lot of horsepower. You know, I want to be doing, I'm speaking in kilometers an hour here. I want to be doing 250 kilometers an hour. I think that's got to be somewhere around 150 miles per hour. Yeah, that's what
crazy,
the L39 on 10S is doing.
That's
ridiculous.
As long as you're CG'd, as long as it does follow its nose, you do want to get the best flight is going to be keeping it as light as possible.
That's in the air too, 105.
I'm with you, Ryan.
Wow.
I just don't always do what I know is right. But yeah, keeping it as light as possible is, as long as it CGs and it flies good, the lightest battery you can put in there always seems to exhibit a better character in the air. And again, you're working the other way now against diminishing returns. You're getting more out of less because it doesn't have to work as hard and all that.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. For me,
Flying's
it's
like
all,
magic. You ever see that physics diagram of the airplane it's supposed to say drag, thrust, and lift, you know, like arrows pointing at.
Yep.
But it says magic, magic, magic.
Okay, I haven't seen this, but I get it.
It's magic, man.
Yeah, airplanes are just really cool. We were talking about airplanes, you know, earlier, and for me, that's what does it. Like cars are cool, boats are cool, run them all, but airplanes just incredible. And more recently, like just fooling around with turbines.
Nice.
Like that's the ultimate experience. We went over that a little bit. What's my favorite plane? And yeah, and if you haven't seen one, I said it before, if you haven't seen a turbine in person, like
or heard one,
in person, it's just it's a thrill. It's a thrill to see.
Wild Bill said 548 miles per hour on an RC glider is the record. Holy.
Yeah. That must be like on the side of a hill where they're just doing like loops.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen videos like that. Like
I filmed some serious turbines. I've had my hands on the sticks maybe once or twice on one. But I filmed I used to go to a lot of shows, and I would film it when Ali Machinchi was still flying a lot. Him and his buddies always had some crazy stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to pimp my channel, but there's some real monster turbines that I filmed on my channel, like back from like from EDF Jet Jam and shows in Alabama where it was other people. But I feel like if I'm a YouTube guy and people are following and watching and things, even though when I'm at those events, I just want to talk to the people, but I wouldn't be doing a good job if I didn't pick up a camera. So it's like this monster SU-30, like it looks like you could hop on it and go, and it would fly you as well. I mean, massive.
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I not going to film that? And
do you know what kind of engines were in there? It was a twin?
Yeah, it was a twin. Ali was flying it. There's a lot of big, crazy turbines I had on a few summers on the channel couple years back now, but these things were just too cool not to film. And if you're filming planes, filming planes is really actually kind of hard.
True.
Like, so the bigger they are, the more scale and kind of in a way slower they present. Like those videos are some of my best because there's just such a clear indication of where it's going. You're never going to be surprised. That's never going out of frame.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty neat.
I think that's the same way with the cars too. Like the fifth scales always look like they're moving way slower than they are, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's neat how the big stuff rides too. Like I've been building a lot of 3D printed bodies on rock crawlers and stuff. And so 10 scale is one of the most popular sizes, but we've been big in building bodies for the big 6 scale SEX6. And man, they just move like you're saying, Watt, like the 5th scale, the way they body roll, the way they look, how slow they do it.
Right.
Like they send you a text message. It's so big and slow. It's like, hey, I'm about to body roll. And it's the same way with big planes and the big crawlers. It's like, check this flex out, slow-mo style. It feels like they just present good, and bigger does fly better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. So when I bought my first turbine jet, it was 2019, and the previous owner, I bought it used, and the previous owner said, you know, like, what do you fly? And I told him, I'm flying a FMS Hawk and L39, whatever. Right. And he's like, I saw you fly that. You're going to love this. And I said, well, how does it fly? And he's like, it's going to be way easier than those electrics that you're flying around. And I'm like, come on, you know? And he just told me,
hard to take. Yeah, that's crazy to soak that up at first, but it's the truth.
It's the Yeah, I can't explain it any better than that. It's the truth. This is how it actually is. It is like that. The thing that you have to wrap your mind around is you constantly have idle thrust pushing the plane. It's there. So when you land, you're going to have to use brakes if you're on asphalt.
That's right.
If you're on a hard surface, grass will probably slow you down. It slows my plane down, but yeah, it's just such a different thrill. I was saying earlier that I can be flying around 100, 110 miles an hour and still plant the throttle and see it pull hard. Like it's still got lots of guts in the tank, in the engine.
That's awesome.
That's crazy, man.
That's crazy.
On EDFs, the flight times are short, so you actually get a flight time on a turbine. You're getting what, 7-8 minutes or something?
Okay, so here's the funny thing, right? I am an electric flyer. I've been forever. I set my timer to 3 minutes on my electric jets, and I come and land and try and hope for the first landing good. So what do I do with the turbine? I set it for 4 minutes. I set it for 5 minutes, and I'm good. I'm good at 5 minutes. I go up, I do a few things, I come land, I'm good. But it's got fuel where I probably can hit 8 minute mark.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be cutting it that short, right?
Right.
Guys are saying that I should fill the tank a little bit short, so I'm not topping it off. Then it'll be a little lighter when it goes out, a little even lighter when it comes back in. But I don't need to risk it. A little heavier on landing to me is a little faster, but
well, you want to have enough if you have to go around for sure.
Right. If I run into something that's failing and not working, and I need a few because I need to figure out something and diagnose it in the air to know how to come in, I got it. I got the fuel for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My second jet flight was a dead stick. I had the engine quit and the fuel pump burned up and was finished. So second flight, I couldn't believe it. I got that on video somewhere on the channel.
Nice. So you were high enough, you brought it in okay.
I was lucky. So it was surging in the air where you can hear, okay, there's a problem. And I didn't even react properly. Like you watch the video and everything's like, oh, what an idiot, what is he doing? But I wasn't even reacting. I was trying to run through in my mind. So the first thing I did was drop the gear, but I didn't maintain high energy. I didn't gain altitude. I didn't gain speed. I didn't do the things that would gain energy. And then I got lucky where it just quit on my downwind leg, like maybe just past the halfway mark.
There you go.
So I just banked her in and landed. And the plane I fly is a floater, so it's not like a true jet, right?
Yeah.
It's a boomerang sprint. If you're familiar with that model.
What'd you say?
Boomerang sprint.
Is that it's got a boom, doesn't it?
Twin boom, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a twin boom. It's a plywood balsa airframe.
That's a classic, right?
Oh yeah, it's been around since maybe the mid 2000s, like 2005.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know the history on how
I've
far
seen
back.
Those are classic. There's a fondness for those in the community of turbine pilots.
Yeah, it's so good. I don't want to sell it.
Yeah,
it's just too good. Yeah, anyone getting into turbines, you get one of those, and it does it all.
Have you ever looked at any of the, there's some companies that have big 12S jets, but they also have turbine versions of the same thing, and they're foamies.
Like HSD?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen them fly locally.
What do you think about that as a segue? I always kind of thought, and I did some promotional work for them as well, but I think for me, it seemed like a good recommendation for a segue into turbines for somebody who was moving into it and already flying foamies and such.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a really good way of getting into jets, So there's a couple things that bother me, but those elements are also taken into the plywood balsa setups as well. And that's where, I take a foam airplane in my car. And, I turn a corner, have to brake hard, wasn't expecting it, and it moves. And then I got this little ding mark, that you can barely see in the foam. Same thing happens.
Airplanes to me have always been funny that way, right? Like the cars, we just can beat the chastity out of them. In the planes, you got to carry it like it's a ballerina porcelain jewelry box. You know,
Yes.
they're badass, but like you better not look at it wrong.
Yes.
Or, you know, you got to treat them different, you know. And
Yes.
that doesn't matter what it's made out of. It's just because the planes are built to be as light as possible, so they just don't have that brute
Durability.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing that kind of turned me away with the foam jets. But plywood, then your balsa and covered, you go and run your nail along that balsa, and you're putting a crease mark in the balsa. You're you know, putting in an indentation, so you get the same result there.
Right.
For me, it comes back to the idea of they don't build, as far as I know, maybe they do now, but they haven't for years, a large enough plane. So I wanted to get something that was relatively large, and the V1 Sprint, because they have the V2 out now, that's I believe it's 78 inches.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's a 100 size turbine in it.
Oh,
Wow.
So it builds 24 pounds of thrust, which is more than 100 newtons.
What do you think about that MB339
from Horizon? Yeah, I have a buddy who's building one right now, and he's going to be flying it soon. You know, within the next 6 weeks or so, it might be in the air. And I think it's a great plane. I think it's a great looking plane, and I think it's a great entry level. It also uses that 80 size turbine.
Yeah.
It's a great size. I think you can get a 60 in there, and it's fine. It'll push it.
You know, to me, it looks like it's neat seeing models that are made to be models, and then there's scale models, right?
Right.
So like a 339 looks like the mix of a few famous sport jets kind of put together.
Yes.
You know, it's got a wing like a plane. You know, it's fairly plank, no delta wing business or lifting body fuselage.
Yep.
So it's going to be pretty honest for folks, and I think that's kind of what it was made for.
Yes.
They're offering for folks wanting to explore turbines. That thing, I've been around it and seen guys fly it. I might have even had my hands on the sticks for a minute. I can't remember. Probably not, or I would have remembered. I think I was filming it. But man, it is surprising. Bigger does fly better. That thing looks like it should fly good, and it does. You know, no bad habits. Sometimes when you get scale is when you get the bad habits that can hurt your feelings.
Yes.
Yep. That thing is going to be one of those floaters, like just fat airfoil, designed to fly good, slow and fast. And people seem to be loving it. It looks killer. It reminds me of a Hawk and a L-39 kind of got together and did some things. Yeah.
I agree. That's the plane that I would recommend, and I think from my perspective, I really like the size of it. I don't know how it compares to some of the foamies. I think it's probably similar.
Man, it's like 84-inch wingspan or something.
Is it 84?
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah. Do so. If it's 84, then I'd recommend that. And I think it's a good price.
They got two schemes on it now, military and the air show team.
Right. Yeah. And I think it was selling for here we go, 2,500 Canadian. So what's that, like $100 American? I can't remember how this conversion stuff works. Yeah, maybe 1,500 USD to 1,800, somewhere in that price range. I think that's a great price for a kit. The trouble is when you look at all the rest of the stuff that you need for it.
Right.
Hey, Pilot Ryan.
Yeah.
You got me printing out tools, my friend.
I was just about to ask, what you printing over there, Ty?
Look what we got.
What's that, a caliper?
Hey, right on.
Yes, sir. That's
cool.
What's up, man.
Nice.
I need that now.
Yeah.
Hey, Pilot Ryan got me printing out tools.
Yeah, everybody prints the little
jars.
boat for the benchy.
Yeah.
I showed Ty the other night. I showed him when I first got my printer. First thing I printed off was a screw gauge. I build crawler kits and stuff, so it's nice knowing what's what. He started the print and had it done before the show was over. I couldn't believe it.
And he switched colors midway.
That's right.
Hey, I tried it. I tried it on this, but it was an epic fail.
I nailed it.
Like that right there shows up the black.
Yeah.
But of course, I didn't switch in time for this right here.
Yeah, but
See it, though.
it's
You
still
can see
easy
it.
to see because it's
Yeah,
recessed.
you still can see it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's still visible, but you know.
No, it
That's
looks
where you
good.
do my jank trick, where you just paint that whole graduated rule and then sand it off, and the paint will stay where the numbers are.
Yeah.
Hey, I nailed it. 84 inches.
84.
And it's $1,700 US.
17 US. Yeah, I'd have to recommend that 84. That's a solid size, and it's on an 80 turbine. Like that's going to be a light enough system.
Yeah, 60 to 85.
60 to 85. There you go. Yeah, beautiful plane. Highly recommended.
Yep.
And I'm going to see one fly hopefully in the next.
Oh, Pilot Ryan, my bad. I removed you from the stage. I was trying to put you on solo.
That's all right.
Man, that looked nice.
That looks awesome, man.
Nice.
MB339
I bet it looks.
for
I
better
bet it looks
pictures.
crazy flying.
My airplane guys already know what it looks like, but
What's the price on it?
He said
1,700
$1,700.
Lyndon's already
Go ahead,
got
Linden.
them
Go
on
ahead.
order.
Swipe the credit card.
Linden
bro.
already got one ordered.
Hey, links
Yeah,
in the
it's hanging up in the
distro,
back.
y'all. I forgot to tell y'all. The link is
And
in
you,
the
if I bought that plane, y'all wouldn't see me no more.
Hey, he wouldn't be taking out the trash. That's for
He'd
sure.
be streaming from the doghouse, no lights on.
Absolutely. Streaming from the doghouse.
Jeez Louise.
Jeez Louise.
Hey, Lyndon know better than buying that. And Lyndon gonna stand down on that plane.
I'm gonna stand down. I'll watch videos of it.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I'm gonna dip, man. I didn't want to. Hey, pleasure talking to you. Good job.
Yeah,
Yes,
you as
sir.
well, Pilot Ryan. I see you on YouTube and watch many of your videos through the years, and
Awesome.
yeah, some of the old school stuff that you did on the Motion channel, and
Oh yeah,
loved
yeah,
all
man.
of it.
I did that. I held that down for 5 years, man. I was there from the beginning.
Yeah, oh, I know. I've been following.
Yeah, dude. I've been through it in RC, man. You already know.
Good for you.
Hey,
though.
Ty, get me out of here. What do I do? I'm not running the stream. See you later, guys. Good job.
All right,
Right.
Pilot Ryan, man.
All right,
All right,
Ryan.
Pilot Ryan. We
Later,
definitely
dude.
appreciate you for joining.
Catch
We'll
you
see you
again,
next
bro.
time.
Yeah, see you in the chat later.
All right. Well, it's 3 hours and 51 minutes in, fellas. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. It's been a
Okay.
nice long live stream. Had Pilot Ryan join, Sergent J join. It's been awesome. We had a lot of informative advice as far as the KVs, the batteries, the battery charging, tools, and things like that. I definitely enjoyed RC Explain tonight. We're gonna go around one at a time, let everybody say what they need to say before we get out of here. RC Explain, we're gonna start with you. You got anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks a lot for having me on the channel, and a lot of you throwing out kind words. Appreciate all the support. My job is to continue providing information so that new hobbyists to the RC world can get in, and that process is going to be easier for them with the information that is made available. Yeah, this is my first live stream that I've ever participated in, and I absolutely enjoyed every bit of it. So guys have been a lot of fun talking about. There's one thing that I absolutely love talking about RC is where it's at, and I appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Appreciate you coming through.
Yes,
We
sir.
definitely appreciate you. And we definitely would love to have you back in the future, definitely.
For sure.
Lenny, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, just want to just say what I just said. Appreciate RC Explain, Ryan, for coming through, man. Kicking that knowledge to us, man. I learned a lot tonight, man, that I thought I already knew, but didn't. Man, I appreciate it. Want to say shout out to the chat. We appreciate y'all too. Thanks for the patience with us, reading y'all questions and everything. And yeah, man, just keep doing what y'all doing out there. Keep liking, following, subscribing. Man, coming through every Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, and Thursday. We appreciate y'all. And yeah, man, catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
What RC?
Yes, sir. I just want to say I appreciate RC Explain for hopping in this live stream with us. I'm glad we could be your first live stream experience. I know I had a great time. I learned a lot of things. I'm going to go ahead and drop his second channel in the chat for you guys, so you guys can go over there and take a look at him running some of his RCs. And yeah, man, just stay tuned with us. We're doing big things this year. I know the chat's always kicking it with us, and we really appreciate that every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So just keep doing what you guys are doing and keep running your RCs, man.
Yes, sir. Sergeant J.
As usual, another great live in the books. We out here in the fun zone. So appreciate everybody in the chat, all the people on the panel. Special shout out to my boy over here, RC Explain. Awesome having you on here. Great wealth of knowledge. I will be picking your brain some more, so hopefully we can link up outside of here at some point. But yeah, thanks to everybody. Thanks for Tyler putting this on in the channel. Got the guys here in the channel that are always here every week. Appreciate y'all. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, man. It's been an absolutely great live stream. Definitely appreciate Ryan from RC Explain for joining us, guys. Links for both his channels are in the chat as well as his website. The guys definitely go check it out. Definitely use that calculator so you can get your motor size, you get everything right. Just use the calculator, guys. Use the calculator. Use the resources that are there available to us. But yeah, man, we definitely appreciate him coming, hanging out with us, rocking out with us for 3 hours and 55 minutes. Woo-wee. I didn't think it was going to be on this long, but hey, it's been a marathon, guys, and we definitely appreciate you guys for bearing with us and hanging out with us this whole time. But you know what it is, man. Like I always say, man, until next time, get out there and drive your RCs, fly your drones. If you got a boat, put it in the water, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.
See you guys.
Chastity.